Rabbi shrahli sadari wa yassirli amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahul qawli. In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, Lord, praise be to Allah, Lord of worlds. Praise and peace be upon our Master Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and all his family and companions. Your Excellency, Vice Dean of Faculty of Psychology, Social and Cultures, Dr. Willy Zulaifa, the Honorable Miss Irma Windy Astuti, as the head of Department of English Language Education. We would also like to recognize and welcome our renowned speaker today, Dr. Willy Renandya of Nanyang Technological University National Institute of Education, Singapore, and Dr. Boon of Joyogakuen University, Japan, and all the respected, distinguished lecturers, guests, and delegates. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a real pleasure for me to be your Master of Ceremony today. My name is Sonia Handinulbis. I am one of the students in English Language Education Department, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Welcome to the International Conference on Language, Teaching, Technology, and Culture 2020, held by English Language Education of Universitas Islam Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to read today's agenda. The first is opening. The second is the recitation of the Holy Quran from Syahrul Yakin. The third is singing the national anthem of Indonesia and hymn Universitas Islam Indonesia. The fourth is speech from Ms. Irma Windy Astuti and followed by our Vice Dean of Faculty of Psychology, Social and Culture, Dr. Willy Zulaifa, on behalf of faculty. Fifth is acoustic performance. Sixth is the first plenary session by Dr. Willy Renandya. Seventh is video profile. Eighth is the second plenary session delivered by Dr. Boon, and the last is closing. To all distinguished participants, to open today's agenda, let's hear the recitation of the Holy Quran by Syahrul Yakin. The time and screen is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahilladzi anzala ala بيده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا Sadaqallahul azim. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah wa ridha wal inayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. That's such a beautiful recitation. May it be a reminder for us to always walk in the right path of Islam. Amin. The next agenda is singing of our national anthem, Indonesia Raya, and hymn of Universitas Islam Indonesia. Please everyone kindly sing it together. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move to the next agenda, that is speech from Ms. Irma Windy Astuti, the head of Department of English Language Education, Universitas Islam Indonesia. To Ms. Irma, the time is yours.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings to all of you from us in Universitas Islam Indonesia, Yogyakarta. It is an honor and a delight for me to greet and welcome all of you at ICOLTEC 2020, brought to you by English Language Education Department of Universitas Islam Indonesia. Thank you and welcome to Dr. Phil Emi Zulaifa, our Vice Dean of Faculty of Psychology and Sociocultural Sciences, to our respectful speakers, Dr. Willy Renandya of Nanyang Technological University, National Institute of Education, Singapore, Dr. Andi Boon of Toyo Gakuen University, Japan, Dr. Yo Jung So of Iwa Women's University, South Korea, Dr. Marcos Benefides of JF Oberlin University, Tokyo, Japan, our beloved doctoral candidates, Ibu Islam Maharsi, Ibu Puji Rahayu, and Bapak Nizamuddin Sadiq of Universitas Islam Indonesia. We are very thankful to have and to be joined by all of you in this special and historical occasion for us. Yes, it is a historical event for us in Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris Universitas Islam Indonesia, for this is our first virtual international conference on language teaching, technology, and culture, especially in time like this. We are grateful to stay committed on organizing and launching this conference despite the pandemic that is still looming in Indonesia and I believe in some parts of the Asia where all of you are joining from. Of course, like many others, we initially intended to hold this international conference on site, but then the situation have been forcing us to have it online instead. And that's probably the only change that we have had to make. Fortunately, we are lucky that we are still supported and joined by the same team of renowned speakers that we have intended to invite in the first place. Therefore, I would like to thank all the speakers for their time and wonderful collaboration. And before ending my speech, allow me to share some of the important information about the conference, which has been made possible by our wonderful team and of lecturers and students of Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris Universitas Islam Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, ICOLTEC has gratefully received 113 selected and reviewed abstracts with 81 presenters as the final numbers. 5 of them are from overseas. We have 57 full papers altogether and around 250 participants from Yogyakarta and joining from many other parts of Indonesia and Asia. We are also proud to announce that earlier we had provided around 5 scholarships for English teachers in Yogyakarta to present and to participate in this conference. We are happy to have this conference as a platform for us to give back to the English teachers community in Yogyakarta. We hope this will help to inspire them and facilitate them in their professional development. We also had successfully held the first conference, we have had successfully held the pre-conference virtual workshop just yesterday on November 10, featuring 3 speakers who had shared about task-based language teaching, translanguaging in English language teaching, and game-based learning. And once again, I would like to thank to all the conference committee for their tireless and passionate work to help organize this special event. And we hope that English Language Education Department of Universitas Islam Indonesia and ICOLTEC will continue to maintain this tradition of excellence and to contribute substantial quality to the field of English language teaching and learning. So thank you very much to all of you and have a wonderful learning time and experience at the conference. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. It was such an encouraging speech. Okay, now we will invite our Vice Dean of Faculty of Psychology, Social and Social Cultural Sciences, Dr. Amy Zulaifa, to deliver the welcoming speech and to officially declare the opening of this conference. Okay, now the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you, MC. Yes. Um, is my voice heard? Can you hear
Yes,
my
Ibu.
voice? Okay,
Yes, Ibu.
yes, I need to check that. Um, okay, let me begin my opening remark by sending you a message of warmth and peace through our Islamic greetings. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace and the blessing from God be showered upon us all. Amin. On behalf of the Dean of the Faculty of Psychology, Social and Cultural Science, I would like to welcome you all to this important event of the International Conference of Language Teaching, Technology and Culture. Our faculty is pleased to see the continuous cooperation between the English education study programs and various universities in Asia and the Pacific. Our Dean sent a message of welcome and hope that the collaboration brings in many wonderful ideas and experience to learn from despite the pandemic. So this is we deeply appreciate all the committee that have worked so hard to make this virtual conference. Congratulations, Ibu Irma and the team. Um, reading through the titles and abstracts of the conference book, I suddenly become more aware that the time might be gone when students and teachers intensively interact in the classroom, while the whole design of the class is to effectively transfer language skill to the students to help with readings, listening, writing, and conversing. I was once an English tutor myself in my undergraduate time. You will not believe this by listening to how I have to deliver the speech, but I was an English tutor during my undergraduate study. Um, so I had the experience of designing a full mode of learning activities in the classroom that will enable the students to be actively engaged, to interact, and to pick up skills while interacting, and to go through a learning process that is fun. And fun means it's together, it's shared, plenty of role playing, and even learning new songs to convey grammar and vocabularies. Students remember that the song Yesterday by the Beatles gave us a long lasting understanding of past tense. I remember conveying that, and we had so much fun in the classroom. The day might have come that part of the learning process will have to be done independently. Resources are plenty and within easy access these days with technology. Class interaction may not be as intensive as those in the old days of mine, that was in the 1990s, end of 1980s, early 1990s, that I took part in tutoring English. All these thoughts, reflection bring me to one important discipline of the philosophy of purpose that in Islam is well thought of. The idea in this view, the philosophy of purpose, is that all things exist in a system and that they are designed for a purpose. Losing a perspective of purpose can be catastrophic to the balance of the whole system. Beside this basic assumption, the maqasid is Arabic word for purpose, believe that in the larger system, within each of us, as one of the living thing in it, 5 relations are fundamental. These relations are our relation with the Creator or God in our belief, relation with the natural environment, relation with others or social relations, and relation with ourselves, intrapersonal relation. And the last is a relation with man-made environment such as technology. These 5 relations are hierarchical and yet interdependent in nature. We now know that the relation with technology comes last in that order. It's the last relation in the hierarchy. Reversing the hierarchy could create chaos for the system. Thus, when we bring back this principle to our learning processes, we might need to think of how that beside employing so much technology, the other four relations beside technology are well accommodated in the learning. How would we cultivate respect, collaboration, harmony as we are social beings and as human with our unique complexity in our learning processes? Fortunately, although our era is marked with technological advancement, we can still be assured that we will be okay, inshallah. Why? Because another principle should become the foundation in all of our endeavors, innovation, and creativity. This principle is the principle of maslahah, beneficent. With this, we can always check whether things we do is beneficial, whether things we develop, we innovate, we create, and things we do is beneficial for our humanity, our coexistence with the environment, and whether or not it enrich our culture. Thus, this conference is important. It brings up the theme on technology, humanity, and culture in the teaching and learning of language. We will leave this reflection to you all as the learned ones in the area of language teaching. Okay. Those are the strongest reflection after I've read through all the abstract and title in the conference book. Okay, and now I think I won't speak for longer. And let me end my remark with have a meaningful and wonderful virtual conference. And with this, then on behalf of the Dean of the Faculty of Psychology and Social Sciences, with this I officially open the International Conference on Language Teaching, Technology, and Culture. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you. That was such an inspiring speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the following agenda is an acoustic performance to warm us up. It is performed live by Chacha and friends. Please, Chacha and friends, this Zoom is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Salsabila Firdausia. You can call me Chacha. I'm from English Education Department, batch 18. And today, I'm not alone. I'm here with my friend Ali as my guitarist. Now, I want to present songs to you. Hope you guys enjoy and like it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's to the wish you were here, but you're not, cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way, cause the drinks bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back you. There's a time there I remember when I did not know the pain, when I believed in forever and everything will stay the same. Now my heart feel like December when somebody say your name. Cause I can't reach out to call you, but I know I will one day. Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday. But everything gon' be alright. Go wash your glass and say, hey, here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not, cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way, cause the drinks bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back you. Do 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 do. Memories bring back you. There's a time that I remember when I never felt so lost. When I feel alone, the hatred was so powerful to stop. Now my heart feel like an ember, and it's lighting up the dark. I'll carry this torch to spoil, yeah, but I know I'll never drop. Oh yeah. Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday. But everything gon' be alright. Go wash your glass and say, here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not, cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way, cause the drinks bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back you. Do 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 do. Memories bring back you. Do 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 do. Memories bring back you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Seems like everybody's got a price. I wonder how to sleep at night. When the silence comes first and the truth comes second, just stop for a minute and smile. Why is everybody so serious? Acting so damn mysterious. Put the shades on your eyes and you feel so high that you can't even have a good time. Everybody look to the left. Everybody look to the right. Can you feel that? Yeah, we're paying real love tonight. It's not about the money, money, money. We don't need your money, money, money. We just wanna make the world dance. Forget about the price tag and about the just change, and about the but bling, wanna make the world dance. Forget about the price tag. We need to take it back in time when music had us all unite, and it wasn't low lows and video hoes. I'm not the only one getting tired. Why is everybody so obsessed? Money can buy us happiness. Can we all slow down and enjoy right now? I guarantee you will be feeling alright. Everybody look to the left. Everybody look to the right. Can you feel that? Yeah, we pay well off tonight. It's not about the money, money, money. We don't need your money, money, money. We just wanna make the world dance. We get about the price tag and about the cha-ching, and about the the bling, wanna make the world dance. Forget about the price tag. need your money, money, money. We just wanna make the world day. Forget about the price tag. It's not about the money, money, money. We don't need your money, money, money. We just wanna make the world days. Forget about the price tag. Ain't about the cha-ching, ain't about the bubbling, bubbling. Wanna make the world days. Forget about the price tag. Forget about the price tag. Whoa, oh, oh. Do-do-do-do-do-do, yeah. Do-do-do-do-do-do, no, no. Forget about the price tag. Thank you so much. Thank you for your kind attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Chacha and friend, for the amazing performance. Now, dear all the participants and presenter, don't forget to screen capture your image in this Zoom meeting using the conference virtual background and post it in the social media with using hashtag ICOLTEC 2020 and hashtag Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris UI, and please tag our IG at Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris UI. Thank you. To all distinguished ladies and gentlemen, lecturers and delegates, this speech from Dr. Willy Zulaifa has symbolically marked the beginning of our event today. We would like to express our appreciation and gratitude to Dr. Willy Zulaifa for attending and opening this conference. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's start our main agenda today. That is the first plenary session from a very respectful and well-known ELT expert, Dr. Willy Ardian Renandya, and this session will be moderated by Ms. Irma Windy Astuti, and I am handing it over to Ms. Irma. Please, the screen is yours.
Thank you to our MC, Sonia, and previously to Chacha and friends for their amazing performances. It get us warm up this morning. It was such wonderful songs and performance. Thank you, Bu Amy. Please feel free to stay with us and also all the guests from Universitas Islam Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. My name is Irma Widya Astuti, and I have the honor of moderating Dr. Willy Renandya's in our first plenary session for the next 90 minutes. And I believe Dr. Willy is with us already. I would like to say hi to Dr. Willy.
Hi, back to you.
Salam.
Hi,
Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you.
Okay, wonderful. It's great to be joined by you, Pak Willy. How's everything there?
Very good.
Very good. Okay,
Yes,
it's good to hear
back to
that.
normal.
Yeah.
Everything is back to normal now.
Wow, that's good to hear that for the Singaporeans. Okay. Well, before we present Pak Willy's main plenary session, allow me to introduce himself, although I believe the man himself, he needs no introduction. Pak Willy, as we all know, has been a very well-known figure in ELT, especially for us in Indonesia and in Asia. At least we must have had attended minimum one of his presentation at some point in the past. And Dr. Willy Renandya is a principal lecturer in English Language Learning Department of National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Yet we all know he is more than that. We have seen many of his works, publication, and contribution in ELT, especially in the field of SLA, ELT methods and material designs, or ELL, English language learning in general. He has a wide range of publication in the various fields of ELT. So I'm afraid it's somewhat simplistic for me to only affiliate him with SLA. Overall, Dr. Willy is an established scholar, a researcher, and don't forget this, a keen advocate on extensive reading, whom always generously share his knowledge and works. Just to name a few, I believe we all enjoy and benefit a lot from his regular address and knowledge sharing via TV group, the Teacher Voices Professional Development, and also via his website, willyrenandias.com. Well, a very resourceful, generous, and inspiring scholar indeed. And therefore, I'd like to say that it is a treat for us to have Pak Willy with us today at ICOLTEC. And for his plenary, Dr. Willy Renandya will be sharing about blended learning in ELT, trends and prospects. This is a topic I believe we are all very enthusiastic to learn about, to give us more references on our remote teaching learning practices so far and our future endeavor. So please, everyone helping me in welcoming Dr. Willy Renandya.
Irma, good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good.
And thank you so much for the introduction. Like you said, I've been giving a number of presentations the past few months. And if you have heard me speak about the same thing, please pretend that you have not heard about this. Pretend that you are surprised. Wow, that's something new. Irma.
That will only enforce the knowledge for us.
Very good. That's another thing I want to say. Irma and Astuti, please have your video on and have your audio on during my presentation. And I'm going to have a chat with you during my presentation. Astuti, are you there? Astuti Hapsari and Irma Windy, please have your microphone and your video on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the topic today is blended learning in ELT, in English language teaching. Let me begin by asking you a few questions. Technology is now everywhere. You wake up in the morning, technology is right in front of you. You go to school, you go to the classroom, technology is out there. My question to you is, Irma, can we live without technology? Yes or no? Irma,
hardly
quick answer.
It's hardly impossible.
It's not possible. Can we teach without technology? Irma again, can we teach without technology these days?
It would be a thing of the past, I believe.
Yes, it's going to be very difficult. Actually, it will be very difficult today because now a lot of things are done online and we need a lot of technology to get our work, our job done. Next question. This is for Astuti. Astuti, are you there? Astuti Hapsari, are you there? Astuti. Okay. Meanwhile, let's continue with Irma.
Still
Irma
muted, maybe.
Okay. Yes, Irma is a very good speaker. Irma, now here's another thing for you to respond to. Technology will replace teachers one day. Is that something that you've been thinking about? Yes, no, maybe?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? I agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Say more. Please say more. Please say more.
Yeah? No, no.
No, no. Okay. It will not. Yes. But
It
this
will
is
not,
true.
yeah.
This is for everyone in the audience. Remember this very carefully. Technology will never, never replace teachers. Students will always need teachers. But what is important for us to remember is this: teachers who know how to use technology, like you and me, will one day replace those who do not know how to use technology. And that is happening now, and that is going to happen in a big way in the future. So I think it's very important for us to realize this, and because of that, we need to get ready, we need to get prepared for the new exciting ways of teaching with technology. Now, I'm sure that all of you are in the business of English language teaching, or some of you in the audience, you may be students, and you may one day also become an English language teacher or any language teacher. Now, the question is this: is technology going to make a big difference for language teaching and learning? So this is a slightly different question, yeah? Listen very carefully. Is technology a silver bullet? A silver bullet is something that will solve everything, that will solve all the problems that you encounter in the classroom. If your students don't speak language well, if your students don't write English well, then bring technology in, and it will solve your students' problem. If your students are not interested in listening, in reading, then bring technology in. Astri is there. I can see you now, Astri. Technology is there for you to use. And again, the question is, will technology be a silver bullet? A silver bullet is something that will solve all your problems. Astri, yes, no? Is technology going to solve all your problems that you have with your students? You're mute.
I believe that technology can help us to solve some problem in classroom, but
some problems, yes, I like that.
Some problems,
yes.
but
yes.
without a proper design, instructional
yes.
design, and
yes.
good pedagogical skill,
yes.
that it is possible to pass knowledge effectively.
Yes, Astri is a very good teacher. And that was a trick question from me, and her response was really, really wonderful. Technology is a tool. Technology will not solve all of our problems, but technology will definitely, in the hand of an expert teacher, of a knowledgeable teacher, can be used as a basis for helping, for solving some of the problems that they encounter in the classroom. I think in the past few months, in the past few years, we have seen a lot of reports from experts, a lot of observations from researchers, and many of these people believe that technology can transform language learning. Isn't that nice? It can transform language learning. And number two, it can enhance language learning. And number three, it can support language learning. So these are three things that we have been hearing, that we have been listening, that people have been saying to us for many, many years now. But the important question for you, for me, and for all of you who are teaching English is this: can technology actually help increase, improve students' English language proficiency? Let me say that again. It's different, yeah? What you saw on my screen is technology and language learning. That's very broad. But more specifically, I want to ask you if technology can really improve, can really increase your students' English language proficiency from A1 to A2, for example, from B1 to B2, for example, from lower intermediate to higher intermediate, for example. Is that something that we can use technology for? So keep that in mind, yeah? Because I am addressing that question in my presentation today. Okay. In order to answer that question, I think we need to look at what has been done out there, what kind of research is available for us teachers to appreciate. Now, here is one example, and there are many other examples out there in the literature. Now, this one is particularly interesting to me because it was published in a very high-profile journal in English language teaching. It's called System. System is a Q1, very difficult to get in. It's a very, very good journal. And the paper was on technology, and it was published last year by a group of researchers, Chinese researchers, who are currently working or teaching in Canada, Lee and her colleagues. Now the title, Astrid, can you read the title for me? Can you see the title from your screen? If you can't, then you need to change your screen. Your screen is way too small.
Yeah,
you need
yeah.
A new...
So the title is a comparison of teacher-student interaction in high and low technology use in elementary EFL classroom in China.
Very good. Yes, I think your monitor is too small, Astrid. You need to get a new one, a big one. Yeah, so it's a very interesting title. Look at that. The more technology, the better. Now, here is what the researchers are interested in. Oops, sorry. So the research, the context of the research was done in a number of primary schools in rural China. Rural is daerah pedesaan, small towns, small villages. It's not Yogyakarta. Maybe it's smaller, like Bantul and some Magelang, maybe. Those smaller cities or smaller towns. And the researchers were interested in looking at two groups of teachers. One group of teachers using a lot of technology, okay? And the other group of teachers using just a small amount of technology. And the researcher is interested in looking at the what is happening in the classroom. How do the teacher and the students interact? Do students use a lot of English? Do the teachers use a lot of English? Do the teachers ask a good set of questions to the students? Do the students respond to the teachers' questions? Do the teachers provide interesting, exciting, and useful feedback to the students? Yep. Irma, what do you think the results are likely to be? What do you think the results are like?
I think it helped enhance the students.
Irma is very careful. English. She is using the word enhance. Irma and Astrid are very, very smart teachers. Results. Remember the question that the researchers are asking is the more technology, the better. So the answer that we are expecting to hear is yes or no, better or not. Irma? Irma will say it depends.
Yes.
I know what you think. Yes. Okay, here are the results. Okay, let me share the results with you. No difference. Sami Mawan.
Okay.
Whether the teachers use a lot of technology or whether the teachers use a little bit of technology, no difference. I think Astrid is thinking ahead. Astrid is probably thinking technology doesn't make a difference. It's how you use technology. It's the pedagogy. Yeah, Astrid? It's the pedagogy that makes a difference. See, technology doesn't help in terms of increasing the amount of language use or English language use in the classroom. Very minimal. The teachers don't speak a lot of English and the students don't speak a lot of English either. Yeah. So the teachers are most likely speaking Chinese like 80% or 90% of the time, and the students barely speak anything in the classroom. Very quiet, very obedient, nothing. And very interesting. I think this happens in many, many classrooms, in many traditional classrooms. And interestingly, it happens also in tech, mediated classrooms as well. The teachers ask the usual questions, lower order, uninteresting, uninspiring questions, usually display questions. Do you know what a display question is, Irma? A display question is, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Yes or no question.
Yes, very good. Like, I'm asking you, Irma, what is your name, please? Yeah. So that is a display question, basically. I already know the answer. Yeah. Astrid.
Yeah.
When were you born?
Yes, Willy, sorry.
How How old are you now, Astri?
How old? 17
Yes.
plus, really.
Don't answer. I was just kidding. So display questions. Directives, very common. You know, teachers ask questions like, open page 10. Please stand up. Class is over. So things like that. Don't forget your assignments or your homework. Yeah. So no change, nothing. And little corrective feedback. The teachers also don't really give a lot of feedback to the students, of course, naturally, because the students don't say anything in the classroom anyway. Let me move on to another piece of study. This one is also very interesting. In fact, compared to the first one, this one is, to me, super, super interesting. Let me tell you why. Now, this is a review article. It's not an empirical research article, it's a review article. So the authors compiled hundreds of previously completed empirical studies that involve some use of technology in the classroom. And then the researchers were looking through all these studies and they tried to determine whether technologies actually make a difference in English language teaching and in English language learning, whether or not technology improves, increases English language proficiency. And again, this paper was published in one of the top journals in technology assisted language learning, CALL. CALL, Computer Assisted Language Learning. Yeah, it's another Q1 journal. Now, here is the context of the study. Very, very interesting, as I said earlier on. Again, the researchers did a major search in the literature, and they were able to compile to get about 350 research studies that involve the use of technology. And these studies usually compare technology-enhanced classrooms and traditional classrooms that use no technology. Yep. And the authors look at the use of mobile learning devices in the classroom. Again, Irma, so what do you think the authors found in their analysis of all these 350 studies? Do you think technology improves language learning? Yes?
I would say no.
No.
Probably not.
Probably not. Okay, Irma is getting smarter now. I think she is taking a cue from me. These are the results, very quick. The results overall, remember they were looking at 350 completed studies in the past. It's a huge piece of review article. Overall, their discussion or their analysis showed that the effect of technology is minimal. Minimal itu bahasa Jawanya nampung ya? Seketik, very little.
Setitik, yeah.
Setitik, yeah. Very, very small, very little. Point number 2 is interesting. If you are interested in helping your students improve on their pronunciation, speaking, pronunciation, clarity of, articulation, accent, and the ability to link sounds together, then technology is wonderful. Yeah. So if you are really, really interested in improving in using technology, then one area you want to focus on is pronunciation. Other areas we don't know yet. I think that's what research is telling us. We don't know yet. There may be something there, but I think research will need to tell us a bit more about that. And number 3, if you want, number 3 is also interesting. If you want your students to say more, to speak more, to produce more language in the classroom, usually the students are very quiet, right? The students don't say anything. Technology can help. Because when your students don't speak anything, don't say anything, when they keep quiet in the classroom, maybe it's not because they don't have the language, but maybe they are too embarrassed, maybe they are too shy, maybe they are too inhibited to say anything using the English language in the classroom. Malu gitu loh. but technology is very good. It breaks the barrier. It breaks the emotional barrier of the students, and they are more likely to use more language. So these are very, very interesting research findings, if you ask me. Yeah. So before you make any decisions about using technology or about claiming that technology is so wonderful, I think as responsible members of the teaching community, I think we need to be more careful. Technology is useful, but for what purpose? In what ways technology is useful? Is it the technology itself? Or is it the way we use technology? That is so important. Okay. Okay, back to you. The question again that I want to address today is this: can technology enhance language learning? Can technology increase your English language proficiency? Yeah, so the answer can be yes, it can be no, it can be maybe, so it depends. Now these are three things. Ini baru mulai sekarang nih, Astri, I'm just starting now. Three things that I want to share with you today. Number one, using technology with little change in pedagogy. That's point number one that I want to share with you. So imagine a teacher, imagine that teacher uses a technology, a piece of technology, maybe an application that is very popular these days, like Mentimeter, for example. But there is no major change in the way they use the technology. Very small. Number two, the use of technology with good pedagogy. So imagine again a teacher who knows a lot about pedagogical principles, and then they pick up a piece of technology and use that technology along with a set of good pedagogical principles. Itu yang kedua. That's the second one. The third one is using technology with or blended with second language pedagogical principles. So these are the three things that I want to share with you this morning. And then again, for each topic here, I will ask you this question: if technology is used in that way, will it then help you improve your students' English language proficiency? Okay, let me begin with the first one. The first one basically is very straightforward. You use technology, but with minimal theory, with minimal or no pedagogical change. Yang ini sering disebut, people often say that this is how you use technology as a simple, direct substitute. A lot of examples there on the screen. Document sharing using WhatsApp, for example. That is just a simple way of communicating, of transmitting, sending, sharing information. In the past, you need to print, the information out on a piece of paper, and then you need to give it to your students. But now you can do it using, some sort of technology. Google Forms is very popular. Spell check is also very popular. Using text, digital text with hyperlinks. I think that is just a simple use of technology. But if you don't make any changes to the way you use that technology, then I don't think you can expect a major difference, a major change in your students' learning. Yeah, in the past, you may be using a printed reading passage in the classroom when you teach reading. Yeah, dicetak dulu, you make a copy, you print a copy, and then you multiply the copy, and then you give it out to your students. Printed text for teaching reading in the classroom. But now maybe you're using digital text. Now, students, please open or please go to this website and read the text on the screen. And the text is likely to be multimodal. The text is likely to be online. Okay, the question to you again is this, Irma. So let's say that you have decided to use, an e-material or e-text instead of printed text. And then you give this to the students, and then you probably want to do a piece of research comparing whether students, students are able to get a deeper understanding of the print text or the e-text, the electronic text or the digital text. Which one do you think is likely to result in deeper comprehension? Irma? Say it depends.
Well, it depends. Based on your previous explanation, there should not be any difference then. Yeah,
exactly. It should
only
not
a different
be,
mode. Yeah.
Yes, it's just a different mode. Yeah. It's just a different way of reading. Now, interestingly, researchers have actually looked at this question very carefully. And you know what they found? And they found that reading print materials result in deeper comprehension compared to reading online or digital text. Reasons? The reason is very straightforward, because reading depends on the reader, depends on whether the reader is able to focus, to stay focused for the whole duration of the reading, whether the readers are able to, look at clues in the text and making inferences and making predictions and things like that. Now, apparently, print materials are superior for deeper, for close, for school type of comprehension. But I suspect that for casual reading, for pleasure reading, for recreational reading, no difference. There should not be any difference. Yep. One big disadvantage of e-books or e-materials is that there's a lot of distraction. There's a lot of distraction there. Yeah, maybe the font size, maybe the color of the fonts, maybe the pictures. Maybe the pictures are so badly designed. Maybe the pictures, attract your attention. So instead of reading, you're just admiring the picture on the screen. So all these things can be, a minus factor for the students. Okay. Now here is an additional example, some more example about what simple substitutions mean. Basically, there's no change in pedagogy. If in the past, the left-hand side, you've been teaching, maybe just using the blackboard or the whiteboard, and you stand up there explaining the subjunctive clause or the conditional clauses or the present tense or the past tense. And now you are doing it with technology, maybe with a computer screen, maybe with PowerPoint slides and things like that, or maybe with a recorded explanation, which you then share with your students. Yeah. So this is just an example of a very simple, straightforward, direct substitution. A famous approach is known as the PPP approach. Presentation, which is basically explanation, explaining what a grammatical item is all about. And the second P is basically practice. After your explanation, then you give a lot of homework, you give a lot of worksheet exercises, for the students to do. And then the last bit, production, is now students, you have learned this particular structure. Now here is a situation, please role play the situation orally using the grammatical structures that you have just learned from me. So this is typically the PPP approach, very direct. And now in the past you used, the traditional, maybe blackboard or whiteboard, but now you're using technology. But the approach, the methodology is basically the same. No change in pedagogy. Now you may be wondering why? Why do teachers, people use technology in that way? Astri is very busy writing, taking notes. I'm very happy when I see my students taking notes. Astri, what are some of the reasons why teachers simply use technology without any major change in pedagogy? Reason? Tiga alasan.
For the convenience, really, because the more familiar you with the method, then it is easy for you to
yes. Okay. Yes, more. Yeah, Irma. Irma, any reasons? Any other reasons?
Probably.
Hey, Bu Ista is talking. Is that Bu Ista talking? Bu
Okay.
Ista Maharsi, are you there? Yes, Irma, go ahead. Yes, Ista. Ista, turn on your video, please.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Ista, very good. I want to see you. I want to hear you. Yes. Irma, Ista, please say some of the reasons. I think this is very important. You are in the teacher training business. You are in the education business, and you want to find out why teachers are doing things like that so that you can help them. Yeah. Okay. Reasons, please. Any reasons?
Not all teachers can use technology well.
Very good. Yes. Yes. They don't know how to use technology. More, please, Irma.
Yeah, they're not well informed of the instructional design for the online mode.
Very good. Yes, yes. They are not well informed. They have little knowledge about pedagogy. Now, here are some of the reasons that I've heard from talking to teachers and talking to friends and colleagues. Number one, they have no time to learn, basically. They have no time to learn the technology, and they've got no time to learn the pedagogy behind it. So it's a double kind of a whammy for teachers, which I can understand because teachers are very busy people. Yeah, your teaching hours is just incredibly large, and there's no time for you to to invest in learning new things. Number two, and sometimes the people feel that they have no choice. The pandemic, for example, is a situation that requires that you use technology. You have no choice, so you just use it. Why are you using it? Because I have to use it. Otherwise, I won't be able to teach my students. Next, anything else? No motivation. Some teachers are just, I am not interested in learning anything new. I am happy the way I am. Why should I work so hard to learn something that is new, that is difficult as well? And finally, this is interesting. Some teachers have, unfortunately, what experts have called fixed mindset. Fixed mindset means something like this. I'm 50 years old. I am already very old. So I am not able to learn anything new. Fixed. I am from Gunung Kidul. What do you expect, from somebody from Gunung Kidul, for example? Gunung Kidul is a small village somewhere near Yogyakarta. If you are from Jakarta, for example, then maybe you can learn a lot of things. Fixed mindset, yeah? This is in opposition to what people have referred to as a growth mindset. A growth mindset is a belief that you can grow, that you can continue to grow and to learn something new until the end of the day, until the end of the world. Okay, now the question then for us is this. I think you need to remember, you need to work with me here, yeah? So throughout my presentation, I'll be asking you these questions. If technology is used in that way, I want all of you to say this together loudly. If technology is used in that way with minimal change in pedagogy, it's a straight substitution. It's a direct substitution. Yeah, Irma, Astri, Ista. Please say the answer together. Can
1, 2, 3.
2, 3, yes.
No.
No, of
No.
course it's no. Yeah. So you don't need to ask anyone about this. The answer is very clear. It's a no.
Obvious.
So, I was very surprised when people, came up with an idea, a research idea, a research proposal. And the research proposal is, will the use of WhatsApp enhance language learning in the classroom? The answer is, I don't think so. No, it's not. But if you use it in a certain way that is in line with the principles of good pedagogy and good second language pedagogy, then the answer is maybe. Yeah, maybe, but definitely not yes. Okay, next. I think we are ready now to move on to the next one. Okay, the next topic is using technology, and the use of technology is in accordance or is in line with what we know about what good teaching, what good pedagogy is all about. I have here on my screen some of the latest trends in education. I think you are familiar with all these ideas. Yeah. So these are, approaches. These are ways of teaching and helping students learn in the classroom, known as, for example, the first one is student-centered learning. When you teach and your focus, the focus of your teaching is on helping your students learn, then your teaching is student-centered in that sense. When you teach and you pay attention to the different needs of the students, different backgrounds of your students, then your teaching is student-centered in that sense. So it's not just about you teaching, you telling the students about something that you know very well. It's not just about that, but it is something that really addresses the mental, the psychological, the emotional needs, but also the other needs of the students in the classroom. Student-centered learning. Number two, very popular as well in maybe not so much in English language education, but the idea is very interesting: inquiry or discovery-based learning. Again, the idea behind this is very interesting because learning is something that the students do. Teaching is what we do. Learning is what the students do in the classroom. And when you involve the students fully, asking them to be very active, to be very participative, to ask questions, to put different things together to discover learning on their own, then the results of learning are likely to be more powerful. A great example of discovery or inquiry learning is problem-based learning. Give your students a problem to solve. Give them the tool to solve the problem. Give them the structure to solve the problem. Give them support, maybe peer support or teacher support to solve the problem. And the students will be very excited and the students will learn a lot more. So these are some of the ideas from current educational trends in the world. Di mana saja, everywhere, people are now talking about these types of learning. And then you also know about the 21st century skills, the 4 C's, communication, collaboration, creativity, and criticality. Now, these are things that will need to be incorporated in our classroom, whether you use technology or without technology. These are good principles. I have here some, more specific principles of what good teaching is all about. Again, I'm sharing this with you so that when you teach with or without technology, you should be thinking about how you can apply some, if not all, of these principles in your teaching. Yeah. The first one is known as personalized teaching, making your lessons personally meaningful for your students. Yeah. For example, if your reading passage is about snow, how do you make that more relevant to your students? Snow is just too far away from your students in living in the tropical area. Another type of dish that is very popular, for example, in the Western world, cereal, for example. Yeah, when people have cereal for breakfast and then you try to teach your students about having breakfast, how do you make that relevant for your students? Yeah. Astri, for example, in Jogja, you don't eat cereal, right? Instead, you eat gudeg for breakfast, lunch, gudeg for lunch, and gudeg for dinner as well. So the idea is then, how can you make something that is not very familiar and to your students and try to make it more familiar to them? So this is the idea behind personalization. Another important idea is differentiated learning. Now, this is a big idea. Nowadays, people are trying to address this by asking the teachers to create different set of materials, different set of activities, different set of assessment in order to address the different needs of your students in the classroom. The idea is powerful, but is not easy to apply. Yeah, so that is the idea behind personalized learning. Whether you use technology or whether you don't use technology, this will have to be kept in the back of your mind when you plan your lesson. Number two, another big word, another big principle in education, in language teaching as well, I would think, is this: engaged learning. Learning happens when your students are fully engaged. Ista, give me a translation of the word engaged in Bahasa Indonesia or Bahasa Jawa. Engaged.
Melibatkan.
Yes, harus melibatkan. Harus melibatkan, harus terlibat secara aktif. Yeah, if the students are not actively involved, they don't learn anything, or they don't learn very much. Or even if they learn from you, even if they learn something from you, that learning disappears after 1 day, after 2 days, after 3 days. Yeah, so engaged learning is so important. Rule of thumb that people have been suggesting is this: if you want people to call you an efficient and effective teacher, then your job is to make sure that 90% of your students are engaged 90% of the times. 90% of the time. What about 80% of the time? That's good. 80% of the students are engaged 80% of the time. What about 50%? Only 50% of your students are engaged 50% of the time. That's not very good. Yeah, an effective teacher, an efficient teacher, effective teaching is about engaging your students. The more the students engage, the more they learn. Yeah, this is very important because very often in our classroom, there's a lot of downtime. Downtime means when the teachers and the students are not doing anything. So if you teach for 1 hour, for example, 10 minutes can easily be a downtime. Downtime means no learning, no teaching, nothing is happening. Maybe you are disciplining your students. Maybe you are doing a lot of logistical issues that you want to address in the classroom. 10 minutes or 20 minutes gone. Very easily like that. Next one is also another very important thing. It's called authentic learning. Teachers, in particular English teachers, please listen very carefully to this. Authentic learning. The idea is that what students learn in the classroom should reflect how language is used outside the classroom, so that there's a direct link between what they learn and what they will be using outside the classroom. So doing school only is not a bad thing, but I think we need to add elements in your teaching so that the students can see very clearly, oh, teachers, thank you very much. Now I know how to give a 5-minute presentation using English via Flipgrid. Misalnya begitu. So something that is useful, something that is authentic. Next one, again, feedback is something that you need to be able to provide. Good feedback. Feedback that is clear, feedback that is specific, and feedback that is always positive. And that is the kind of feedback that will give your students a great opportunity to learn again. Yeah, feedback can be a pain because it takes up a lot of your time, but feedback is a great way for you to reteach and for your students to relearn what they have learned. So you can't run away from feedback. The next one is flipped classroom. I think you have heard about this flipped classroom. Now, this one in particular is useful when you teach content areas. Yeah, when you teach content areas like, I don't know, linguistics, for example, then this is going to be very useful. The idea is you give students materials, video, audio, or print materials, or digital text to prepare before they come to class. so that class time can be devoted to going deeper into the text through discussions, through explorations, through debates and things like that. And finally is collaboration. I think you know this very well. Knowledge, learning, or knowledge is individually constructed. Knowledge is something that you learn on your own, but at the same time, knowledge is also socially constructed. What happens is that if you share your knowledge with other people, if you share your newly learned knowledge with other people, and that other people provides feedback through disagreeing with you, through giving their opinions, what happens is your knowledge becomes bigger, your knowledge becomes expanded. So that is what social interaction or collaboration means. Okay. Now here is a very nice book by Professor Shupples. And in that book, he says this, very interesting for us to remember: to improve education, focus on pedagogy, not technology. Ista, do you agree? 100%?
Yes, pedagogy.
100% agree?
Not 100%, I think. Not 100%.
Okay, nothing.
Help us.
Yes. Okay, Astri, what do you think? Agree? Disagree?
Agree, but not 100%.
Very good. Yes. Irma, please say the same thing. Agree, but not 100%.
It's a very strong comment, I'm afraid.
I think it's a very strong comment. Yes, he is a psychologist. He is a pedagogy person. Yeah. Maybe he doesn't use a lot of technology in his teaching. I mean, he's not a young, he's not a young chap or anything. I think we need to be very careful with this. Pedagogy, not technology. It's like you put two things in opposition. Yeah. I think nowadays you will have to be able to see that the use of certain pieces of technology also require a certain ways of doing it. So a new pedagogy or technology-based pedagogy, I think, is growing, is emerging. You can't just use the same old pedagogy. So for this, I will change this a little bit to improve education, focus on pedagogy and. So change not to and. Pedagogy and technology, or technology and pedagogy. In this way, both are important. Yeah, there's a lot of developments in technology, and we are just beginning to grasp the implication of using technology for language learning, for language teaching, or for teaching in general. Okay, number two. I'm done with number two now. Now the question again is this: can technology improve proficiency if technology is used along with a good set of educational principles like student-centered learning, like collaboration and things like that? Yes, no?
Yes.
Or maybe? Yes?
Yes.
2 thumbs up, all of you? Yes? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say maybe. I'm going to say maybe, not yes. So not yet. We are not there yet. Yeah.
Oh, not there yet.
We are not there yet. The answer is maybe. Remember, we are not teaching mathematics. We are not teaching history. We are not teaching geography. We are teaching, what do we teach?
Language.
We teach language, yes. And because of that, we need an additional set of principles based on what? Based on theories, based on principles of language learning, of language acquisition. And that is where I am going to, what I'm going to share with you now. Technology, using technology with or informed by SLA-inspired pedagogy or SLA-inspired principles. SLA stands for Second Language Acquisition. Yeah. The past 50 years, we have seen a lot of research studies trying to understand how best we can help our students to acquire, to extend, and to expand, and to maintain their English language learning. And I think we need to make use of these principles. Otherwise, all the time and effort of these great, wonderful people, scholars, will be wasted. Yeah. So today I'm just going to share with you three L's, the three L's of SLA principle. Yeah, there are many principles out there, but I'm just going to share with you three. Why three? Irma, why three principles only? Why three?
Simplicity.
Yes, it's easy to remember. If I tell you 30 principles, you will forget right away. So three principles only. Okay, the first one, the first L is stand for language input. I will explain what it means very soon. Number two, the second L is language processing. Extremely important. And number three is language use. Yeah, very, very easy to remember. 3L. Yeah. Okay, Astrid, what are the 3L again?
Language,
3L?
language input, language processing, and language use.
Very good. Astrid is my best student today. Okay, what is language input? Maybe if the term input is not familiar to you, language input is another way of saying that this is language nutrition, food, nutrition. Yeah. And where do you get this language input? Where do you get nutrition? Where do you get language nutrition? Essentially, in the English language classroom, this is from listening, viewing,
reading,
and reading. Yeah. So basically from hearing and seeing. So that is input. So the theory is very clear. Second language theory requires that we provide a lot of language input to our students. We need to give students a lot of language nutrition. And technology, voila, technology is just an excellent tool. Free, it's available, and it is the greatest source of language input or language nutrition. Point number two from research is this. Input is a sine qua non to language acquisition or to language development. Sine qua non is a Latin word meaning a prerequisite, a precondition, to language learning. In a simple language, no input, no learning. I think we need to keep saying this until we remember, until we apply this in the language classroom. So very often when your students don't learn very much from you, it's because the input that you provide in the classroom is very small, very minimal, is not significant at all. Remember that, no input, no learning. And technology is a great way to provide students with massive amount of input. Yeah. Now, again, technology is just a click away. You just click a button and it's voila, it's out there for you. What are some of the things that are available on the internet? Here, ebooks are available, e-novels are available, graded readers are there, TED talks available for free for you to view, for you to download. If you have some money, subscribe to Netflix. That's also a great source. Thousands of movies, thousands of TV dramas, talk shows are also available on the internet. Your job as a teacher is to make this available, number one. And number two is to get your students excited about immersing themselves in language input through the use of technology. Yeah. Now, this is what some of the most well-known scholars in English language education say about the importance of input. Yeah. Bu Ista is going to read it aloud for everyone in the audience. Bu Ista, take a deep breath. And tomorrow, Bu Ista is also giving a presentation on extensive reading. So please come and attend her session tomorrow. Bu Ista, please read.
Yes, okay.
loud and clear.
Right. Good things happen to students who read and listen a great deal in the foreign language. Research studies show they become better and more confident readers. They write better, their listening and speaking abilities improve, and their vocabularies become richer.
Yes, so it's everything basically. So your job again as a teacher is to provide students with a lot of language input, a lot of language nutrition. And your students, after 6 months, after 1 year, your students will be able to improve on almost anything. Remember, principle of second language learning is about improving language learning. It's about improving language proficiency. And the best way, one of the best, if not the best, is this, providing a lot of input to your students through listening and also through reading. So these are some examples of resources that are available on the internet. Room to Read, free. Hundreds, if not thousands of free reading materials for you to use with your students. Storyline Online, if you enjoy listening to a, celebrity, for example, movie stars, singers, politicians, president even, or former presidents, reading aloud to your students, here is a great one. It's called Storyline Online. Again, it's free for people to use. And finally, if you want your students to have access to hundreds, if not thousands of video, audio materials, now here is a great source again, and the name is ELLO, E-L-L-L-O. It's a great source for you to access. Now, if you have money, or if your university has budget, and if your university is keen on providing students with a more systematic access to language nutrition or to language input, now here's one for you. It's called X Reading. Astri, your job is to convince your head of department and to convince your dean that UEE students, I think, need this. It's called X Reading. Now, here is something you need to know about X Reading. It has about 1,000 plus books, graded readers. Graded readers are easy readers, readers that are comprehensible, easy to understand by students. The students can read, the students can turn on the audio, and they can do both. So they get two benefits from reading and from listening at the same time. Yeah. Checking students' progress is easy. Teachers can also assess students' understanding. Teachers can guide student selection, and teachers can also assign activities, all built in the system. It has a built-in learning management system. So it's at the tip of your hand, basically. You have 50 students that can read the same book at the same time. You have 1,000 students, you can assign them the same title of the book for everyone to read at the same time, and afterwards you can have a discussion in the classroom about the book. So that is the beauty of this particular digital library. Again, if you ask me why teachers in Indonesia and elsewhere, this is important for us, it starts tomorrow, why teachers are not making use of extensive reading or extensive listening, here are some of the answers. No books, no time, not interested, and many other reasons. Now, here is a free book for you. Later after the session, you can go to my website. It's called Renandya.com, and you can download this free book. And this book contains information about why teachers are not doing what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to providing input in the language classroom. Now, if you want something that is more convincing, now here is a piece of research. Sebuah hasil penelitian done in, I think in Morocco, somewhere in South Africa. The researchers are interested in finding out what some of the best speakers of English, students speaking English, did in order to improve on the English language proficiency. And many of them, these are many of the most proficient learners of English, teenagers. They say that they have learned about 70 to 85% of their English by going online or by watching satellite TV. Yeah, you can do the same kind of research in Indonesia and find out some of your best students, how do they acquire, how do they learn English? And they will tell you the same thing. Yeah. Now, here are some examples of successful learners of English who immerse themselves in the English language through listening and through reading on a regular basis. The first girl is from Korea. The second one is from Thailand. The third one is from Vietnam. And I will also show you some pictures, some photos of English language teachers who, in my opinion, they speak beautifully. Their English is so strong, and they got it. They were able to do it from doing a lot of reading and a lot of listening. I think you probably know these two docent lecturers. First one is Ibu Mita from Sanata Dharma. The second one is Ibu Francisca Yvonne from Malang. Second one, the first L again. Astri, what is the first L again?
Language input.
Very good. Astri is very alert and very involved as well. The second L is language processing. Now this one, I think, also needs our attention. Language processing basically means this. Yes, input is important, but input alone is not enough. Yep. The input, the language in the input will have to be easy. Easy means at the student's level. Easy means students don't need a dictionary. Easy means if there is one or two words that they don't know, they can guess these words very easily. They don't need your help. They don't need a dictionary. They can just do it on their own. So that is the kind of input that facilitates processing, facilitates language acquisition processing. And the next one, something for us to remember is this, the content. The content. The students don't read because the contents are not interesting. The students don't listen because the contents are not exciting and the language is difficult. Yeah. So these two ideas are extremely important so that the students can really get the most from the language input. This is what happens if the language is easy, if the language is manageable, if the contents are interesting and magical. The students will keep on reading. The students will just stay focused. They will read and read and read until they get to the end of the book. So that is what I mean by magical. The contents will have to be magical. Now, here are some examples of the kind of books that I have been reading. Now, to me, these books are magical. These two books are just wonderful. I think you should get a copy of this book, of these two books. If you're a teacher, then you must read these two books. Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful books. If you are older, if you're getting older, you're very young now, Ista, when you turn to 50, 60, and so on, read the white one, Late Bloomers. That is a wonderful, wonderful book. And finally, if you want to understand what the future is going to be like, the last book is for you. 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. Beautiful, wonderful book. Now, these are my pleasure reading and pleasure viewing activities. I'm not sure you know this, but these are the kind of things that to me, got me so excited and so interested in reading and also in viewing and listening. Astri, number 2 is language. Number 1 is language input. Number 2 is language processing. And number 3 is language use. Yeah. Irma, stay awake. Please read. The goal of language learning is this. Yeah. What is the goal of language learning? This one. To develop the ability to use English fluently, to use English accurately as well, and also appropriately. In order to do that, you need this. There's no other way. Ladies and gentlemen, remember this. And technology is just wonderful to get the students to do the same thing again and again. And technology will not be tired. They won't complain as well. Remember, earlier on, I mentioned about a research study that shows that if you want to improve on the pronunciation of your students, use technology. The reason is technology provides you with great opportunities for you to do the same thing again and again and again and again until you become very good at it. Yeah. Irma, please read this for me. Loud and clear.
People learn to read by reading.
One more time, please, louder.
People learn to read by reading.
Very good. Next one.
People learn to speak by speaking.
Very good. Next one, please.
People learn to listen by listening.
Very good. I think she hesitated a little bit, but I think she got the answer right. And finally, Irma.
People learn to write by reading and writing.
Okay, very good. I think she's being very creative. Yeah, I think the message is very clear. If you want to be able to do a good thing, to be fluent, to be, accurate and so on, you have to do it again and again. Read again, listen again, speak again, write again, and and the rest of it. But remember, 3 L's. Yeah, it's not just about this. The 2 initial things will have to be in place: the language input, the language processing, and finally the language use. So again, these are the 3 L of the 3 L's of how technology can be used to help our students to improve on their English language proficiency: input, processing, and language use. Now the big question again, Ibu Ista, can technology improve proficiency if the use of technology is inspired by the 3 L's? Yes, no, or maybe?
Yes.
Yes, definitely yes. No question. I mean, the research is very clear. The empirical evidence is very strong. Yeah. So here are some conclusions. Point number 1, teachers, if you have not been using technology, the time is now. You cannot wait, and you have to keep on improving, improving your knowledge, improving your ability to use technology for teaching purposes. Yeah, but that's not enough. If you are really interested in helping your students to improve on their English language proficiency, then you need to merge, you need to blend technology with good pedagogy, and number 2, with a good set of English language principles. If that is the case, then can technology improve language learning? The answer is, say it together, 1, 2, 3, Astri, Ista, Irma, and me. 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
Yes, I think I should end there. It's about 1 hour.
Yes. Okay, Pak Willy, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Back to you.
Well, yes. So we have spent 1 hour, more or less, Dr. Willy's presentation. It's a very dense, rich, and thought-provoking presentation. It doesn't feel like an hour when you are a bit.
I thought it was very light, not very dense.
Okay, a lot of things that we get in an hour, and it doesn't feel like an hour when you are very engaged. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have got a reminder from the committee. Please don't forget to fill the attendance, your attendance via the link provided. And now we have come to the Q&A session. Yeah, we can start the discussion. Feel free to drop your questions or maybe comment or maybe share your experience on the use of technology for teaching and learning, for the language teaching and learning. Okay, so I would like to invite everyone. We have about 100 plus participants. Okay, we have We can look at the chat. I'm helping to read from the chat box. Some of the participants' account. Bu Puji Rahayu said, I'm particularly interested in technology which can help present things that we cannot present in the classroom. So the ability of technology to facilitate learning that may not be possible in an offline class like that. And then, yeah, a remark from Ibu Uli, a very inspiring and insightful talk as usual. Okay, now we have a questions from Ibu Intan Pradita. I'm still reading it from the chat box. How to provide social presence of a teacher through technology. So this is likely some of our concerns when teaching online.
Say it again. What is the question again? One more time.
Yeah, how to provide a social presence of a teacher. Maybe it's how to build rapport between a teacher and students while meeting online.
Okay, what I did just now during my presentation, I think is a great example of how you can talk to your students. Yeah, so you should not be presenting something to your students, but you should be presenting something with your students. Listen very carefully. Yeah, there's a big difference between talking to and talking with.
Yes.
I think my presentation can be seen as an example for me to engage, to interact with you, and to involve you in my presentation. Yeah. In fact, I could have done my presentation in half an hour. Very easy for me. Yeah. You just go through the main points and then done. And when I did that, if I did that, you would not remember. You would not remember what I said because you were not involved. You were only half listening. And the other half, you are thinking about many other things that are not related to my presentation. So that's one way of doing it. Is it easy to do something like that? The answer is no, it's not easy. It's not easy. Two things to remember. Number one, you need to know your materials very well. Yeah, you have to know it so well that it's all in your head. You can do it with your eyes closed. Yeah, so content knowledge becomes very important. Number two is pedagogical knowledge. How do you get people interested? How do you get people excited about learning? How do you interact with your students? You have to involve them. You have to keep, and one way to do this is to ask frequent questions. Yeah, simple questions just to keep people awake and to make sure that people are on the same page with you. Yeah, the same thing if you show a video, for example, you have found a great teaching video that you want to use in the classroom, and the video is 30 minutes long, 30 menit, 30 minutes long, and then you ask your students, please listen, please watch the video for 30 minutes. How many of your students honestly will be watching the video? Question number one. And question number two, how many of your students will learn something useful from watching the video? Not much. Yeah, not many will be watching, and not much they will get from the video. Technology can help. Hey, look at this. Technology is there for you to help. If you have a 30 minutes video, very easy. Use the video editor available in your computer, Windows video editor. Break it up into 3 segments. 10 menit, 10 menit, 10 menit. Easier now. And then the first clip is part 1. The second clip is part 2. The third clip is part number 3. You put it on YouTube and turn on the auto play, and then the students will be able to listen for 10 minutes. And if they want to continue, it will show the next segment and so on and so forth. One way of doing it. So break it up into small segments. Number 2, with a small, simple technology, even a 10-minute video is too long for your students. Intan is nodding her head. 10 minutes is too long. Yeah, Intan. So what do you do, Intan? What can you do to get the students excited about watching a 10 minutes video?
The video watching activities itself should not be only watching the video without any meaning-making activities.
Very good. Intan, are you a student or a teacher?
I am a teacher, but I'm your student right now.
You're a teacher at OEE as well?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yes, please say more. So what else can you do? Remember, you have a 30-minute long video. My first suggestion is to break it up into 3 clips, smaller segments, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. But then again, even 10 minutes is too long for your teenage students. So what do you do?
Some of the audience here are my students as well. So usually I started the class by greeting them and then having a sneak peek for a while, questioning about.
Oh, I like that, sneak peek. Wow, that's a new tool.
Their cognitive background or personal background knowledge, and then we go to the video afterwards.
Very good. Now, with a small application, you can actually insert. So you have a 10-minute clip. You can insert in strategic point questions, discussion questions, or even Mentimeter, asking students to provide a response right away. Very easy to do. I can't remember the name of the application, but I think it's available for free. Something like I will tell you later.
Okay.
So it's very easy to use. You just have the video and then use the application to insert interesting discussion questions. So every 3 minutes, maybe insert some interesting questions for the students to think about.
Is it Flipgrid?
Not Flipgrid. Flipgrid is a video. Yeah,
it's a video.
Yes. What I'm saying is that once you have done the Flipgrid thing, then you can insert.
Okay.
You can insert questions. You can insert, maybe Mentimeter questions or anything else in there. And the process is very easy.
Okay.
Again, this is something that I've just learned. Something new, but I am now learning a lot of things using technology. And it's a lot of fun, actually.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing with us. So I guess engagement is the key, and
yes, absolutely.
how,
100%.
and it is how is important, right?
Yes.
How to manipulate, for example, the technology to maximize the learning engagement of the students.
Absolutely.
All right. Yes. And then we still have around, I guess, 20 minutes. So bear with us, Pak Willy. And also,
okay, but you have to pay me double, yeah?
Okay. We have questions, I guess, from another participant. How to motivate learning in reading activities. We know that Indonesian students are still, they have very low literacy. Pak Willy said that input is necessary in as a source. So okay, that's the question, I guess.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Motivation is important. Motivation is important whether you learn English, whether you learn how to read, whether you learn mathematics, whether you learn geography. In education, motivation is number one. I think we know that. Yep. But we also know that when you can make something interesting, when you can make something exciting, when you can make something, suspenseful for your students, when you can make something more mysterious, for example, when you can make something, a problem that your students want to solve, I think you will be able to increase the level of motivation of your students. That's point number one. And point number one has to do with the materials, the reading materials. Students are not excited, students are not motivated because the reading materials are not exciting. That's point number one. I think that's very easy to solve. As a teacher, your job is to check. Your job is to find out from your students. Ask them, what is it that you want to read? And your job as a teacher is to find those reading materials so that the students want to read those materials. Yeah, that's
yes,
number one.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Number one, baru satu nih. Yang kedua adalah you, the teacher. Are you a reader? Do you enjoy reading? Do you read every day? Do you bring books into the classroom? Do you show the books that you are reading to your students? Do you tell your students how excited you are about your reading? Number two, yeah. So number one is the content itself. We have to be interested and exciting. And number two, students need to see somebody that they respect, somebody that they look up to doing the same thing. This is known as modeling. Di filsafat Jawa itu ada namanya yang di depan memberi contoh itu bahasa Jawanya apa ya Mbak Ista?
Tuturian dari
Sosong tulodo.
Iya, ayo tiga-tiga dibaca semua. Yang pertama adalah
Engarso sung tulodo.
Yes, you always need to give an example. Ingmadio apa tadi? Ya, bangun karso itu apa sih? Semangat kan ya?
Yes, semangat.
Ya, and then yang terakhir
Tut uri handayani.
Ya. Jangan tut uri jorokaken. Satu semua. So very simple examples. Children want to see an example. And that example is a great source of motivation. Yeah. Seorang ibu, a mother who wants to read aloud a story, who wants to read aloud to their kids, 1 year or 2-year-old kids. What books do you read to them? Apakah beli sebuah novel yang tebalnya 600 halaman terus dibacain ke anak? Kan enggak. What do? You find a very easy, a very simple, a very interesting story. Yeah. And as the kids become older, then they want to see you doing a lot of reading as well at home. And that is how your kids become so excited, become so interested in reading. Ada teman saya, a student, not a student, a colleague from Sanata Dharma, namanya Mbak Yusefa. Yeah, I think she is a great example. She is a great model for her daughter, and she is a great example of a mother who is really excited about reading. So she would buy a lot of books for the daughter, and now the daughter has grown up and become a good reader. Become a real avid reader. That's what you need to do, yeah? So motivation is not just about telling, memberi ceramah, memberi kuliah. Anak-anak membaca itu baik loh. That's not enough. Kamu harus selalu membaca loh. That's not enough. That's the worst kind of advice.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So that was the answers. Yeah, that was your answers, Pak Adnan Kholis. The previous question was from Pak Adnan Kholis from Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Yogyakarta. Thank you for the questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello, Pak. Yes.
Yes. Next explanation.
Yes.
I thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Willy.
Yes, I think. Let me just say a little bit more about literacy. In Indonesia, generally literacy is very, very low, and all of you as educators, I think we need to feel very, very sad, because internationally, Indonesia is way at the bottom. Kayaknya nomor 3 atau nomor 4 dari bawah. Literacy. We are talking about basic literacy, membaca, memahami, menghubungkan kalimat, memahami paragraf pertama dan paragraf kedua. Very basic literacy in bahasa Indonesia, and that is very, very low. Dibandingkan dengan negara tetangga, misalnya Vietnam, we are way below Vietnam, just in terms of basic literacy. I think that is our homework. Sebagai guru bahasa, I think we have a lot of responsibility to help increase the literacy level of our students, especially those in the less advantaged kids, living in villages, small towns, and also those from outer di luar Pulau Jawa. I think we have a lot of responsibility there. The future of Indonesia is, dependent on literacy level, minimally. Yes, one last question.
Yes, one last question. We actually still have two, but I will let Pak Willy to choose. The first question is, I guess, from a lecturer or a teacher, and the other one is from the student. So probably Pak Willy interested in taking the student's question this time.
Yes, I think yes.
This one, okay. This one is coming from Mehrunisa. How to relearn effectively the material given by the teacher in online learning, because I sometimes feel that the feedback given is limited. Oh, okay. So
I think the student is complaining about you, Irma. I think you can respond to that question. I've heard a lot of this kind of questions. I think it's a valid feedback, it's a valid feedback for us. For all of us. Relearning is so important, and because of that, the feedback we give will have to be, number one, minimally it has to be informative. Harus itu. Yang kedua, the feedback must tell the students clearly what they need to do. If you give a piece of feedback on the student's writing and say, for example, well, your writing is not good, for example, please rewrite, please resubmit your essay. I think that is the worst kind of feedback that you could ever give to your students. Number one, students don't know why it is bad. Number two, the students don't know what to do to improve on the quality of their essay. Bad example of feedback. Yeah. Remember three things. Feedback has to be, number satu, positive.
Positive.
I think students respond better to positive comments and feedback from teachers. And number two, it has to be clear. Clear from students' perspective, not from your perspective. Clear. And number three, it has to be specific. Spesifik itu harus jelas, ini bagian mana yang perlu diperbaiki, bagian mana yang kurang baik. This sentence is okay, but I think you can make it better by adding a few more adjectives here. And some of the adjectives are the following. Yeah. If you do that, I think you will receive, Irma, you will receive less complaints from your students.
Okay, it's a constant reminder for
I think so. I think so. Yes. Yes.
For us.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pak Willy, for the explanation.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that was the last question that Pak Willy could address us because we are approaching the end of the first plenary session here. Thank you very much for all of the questions. And Pak Willy, thank you very much for sharing with us and giving us a constant reminder not to at least jump directly onto the latest technology or the newest app without having without educating ourselves on the pedagogy, especially on all the principles that you have mentioned. Most importantly, the SLA, inspired principles, if we talk about our context in English language teaching learning. And it's always a good idea to reflect on the latest research on SLA in dealing with technology. So thank you very much, Pak Willy, for sharing. I hope we have the chance to meet again. I look forward to having you and meeting you in another occasion and learning more from you. Okay, so I think we are at the end of the first plenary session. We have presented Dr. Willy Renandya with his material. Thank you very much for your attention and participation. The next session will be, there will be another plenary sessions, and Pak Willy may stay or you may also continue with your activity.
Thank you.
So that's all from me.
Big hands for Irma, please.
Thank
applause,
you.
Applause for Irma for doing a good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That was from me. I would like to hand it over to the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you very much for Dr. Willy Ardian Renandya. Very insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed to the next plenary session, let's take a few minutes to watch a video from the English Language Education Department. Hope you enjoy.
Yogyakarta, siang dan malam menampilkan ribuan wajah unik. Budaya, seni, dan insan dari berbagai belahan dunia berkumpul menjadi satu. Pendidikan merupakan salah satu wajah Yogyakarta yang tidak bisa diabaikan. Lebih dari 300.000 mahasiswa yang telah menuntut ilmu di kota pendidikan ini. Dan tidak sedikit dari mereka telah membuktikan diri menjadi generasi yang unggul bagi bangsa. Berdiri sejak tahun 1945, Universitas Islam Indonesia kini telah berhasil menempati jajaran perguruan tinggi terbaik di Indonesia yang berlandaskan semangat nilai keislaman dan kebangsaan. Kami percaya bahwa pendidikan yang baik tidak hanya mengantar mahasiswa menuju masa depan yang cemerlang, namun juga membekali mereka dengan nilai keagamaan yang kuat, menjadikan generasi yang beramal ilmiah dan berilmu amalia. Komitmen untuk menjadi universitas dengan pilar penelitian yang kuat telah mengantarkan UII menerima kehormatan dalam pemeringkatan Kementerian Riset, Teknologi, dan Pendidikan Tinggi Republik Indonesia sebagai perguruan tinggi swasta dengan kinerja penelitian terbaik di Indonesia pada tahun 2016. Dengan fasilitas berkelas dunia, UII telah terakreditasi institusi A dan mendapatkan penilaian overall ranking QS Star 3 bintang dari Lembaga Pemerikatan Quacorel Siemens sebagai bentuk pengakuan internasional. Kerjasama aktif dengan lebih dari 123 institusi internasional yang tersebar di berbagai penjuru benua memberikan kesempatan bagi mahasiswa untuk memperluas wawasan, mobilitas, dan pengetahuan guna memenangkan persaingan global. Ilmu pengetahuan tidak selalu terbatas di dalam kelas, karena kita diciptakan untuk terus mengeksplorasi alam sekeliling kita. Bahkan hingga puncak tertinggi. Kami yakin inovasi berkelanjutan menciptakan kemajuan, dan kemajuan akan mendorong kita menjadi bangsa yang unggul dan kompetitif di era global ini. Inspirasi dapat datang di mana saja dan kapan saja. Dan dengan kampus terpadu seluas lebih dari 35 hektar yang menjuarai Green Awards di tahun 2016 pada kategori Green Campus, UII merupakan kampus ideal untuk mengasah ilmu dan mengembangkan diri. Sejak kita lahir, kita terus belajar. Belajar dari pengalaman dan belajar dari masa lalu. Kesempurnaan diri datang dari langkah kecil penuh percaya diri. Kami yakin di UII, langkah kecil bisa menjadi lompatan yang besar. Dengan lebih dari 83.000 alumni yang tersebar di seluruh tanah air dan penjuru dunia, kami siap untuk membantumu bergabung bersama mereka. Masa depan ada di tanganmu, dan kami siap menunjukkan jalannya.
Thank you. To all distinguished lecturers and delegates, the next plenary session, I assure you, won't be less spectacular. Thank you. To all distinguished lecturers and delegates, our next plenary session, I assure you, will not be less spectacular than previous one. Our next speaker is Dr. Andi Boon from Toyogakun University, Japan, and this session will be moderated by our moderator today, Mr. Willy Prasetya. The screen is yours.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, this is a very wonderful opportunity for all of us to learn new insights and new knowledge from our spectacular speakers right now. But before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Willy Prasetya. I'm one of the lecturers in the English Language Education Department at Universitas Islam Indonesia. Today, we're going to have a plenary session from Dr. Andy Boon. I guess he's here already.
Hi.
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 It's nice to meet you, Dr. Boon.
Welcome to my apartment.
Hi. Yeah. And welcome to Universitas Islam Indonesia.
Thank you for having me.
It's really sad that we cannot meet in person, but hopefully the experience of learning and sharing will be still the same.
Yes.
Okay, before we start the session, I would like to introduce our speaker. His name is Dr. Andy Boon. I would like to read some of his work in the field of teaching and learning and his education. He got his PhD in applied linguistics from Aston University in Birmingham, and his master's degree is from the same university, and his BA from University of Sunderland in England. And he is currently teaching as a full-time professor in Toyogakuen University in Tokyo, Japan. He teaches English to university students, and his specialization, as reflected in his work, is on the curriculum development and planning and testing, teacher training, internship coordinator, and teaching for business English. Besides working as a full-time professor in Toyogakuen University, he also teaches as a part-time teacher in GF Oberlin University in Tokyo, Japan. Well, that's really awesome, working in two places at the same time. And his recent work in the field of academic publication, he published a work entitled Creating Material for a CLIL Philosophy 101 course, and is expected to be published in 2021. And this year he has published at least 2 works focusing on the teacher narratives and the teaching of qualitative research skills for students. And he still has a lot of publication that I will not be able to finish in this session because it's really a lot. Okay, after reading the curriculum vitae, I believe that we will learn a lot from Dr. Boon. So without any further ado, I would give the screen to Dr. Boon, please.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for a very nice introduction. I have to start with an apology that I missed the opening ceremony and I missed Pa Willy's plenary session today. I had a very, very good reason for this. Originally, I was going to cancel my classes because I would be there in person. However, as I'm doing this via Zoom, I'm sure my students were happy that I didn't cancel this morning's classes. And I have just finished a class on IELTS and a class on philosophy, John Locke in particular, and had some lunch, and I'm ready for this session. So I'm looking very forward to giving my plenary, and I hope that you can get a lot from it. So I am going to share my PowerPoint. Just let me get this ready. Okay, there we go. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen and my PowerPoint. During my session today, you might want to take lots and lots of notes, but at the end, I'm going to give a reference list. And particularly, I'll talk about one of the publications where today's session will be featured. So you'll be able to get a lot of the data from there. And I'm going to talk about facilitating reflective practice in the age of the pandemic. Now, a little bit about myself. I've been living and teaching in Japan for about 23 years. I would love to be wearing a batik for today's session and be in your wonderful hot weather, but unfortunately today is November and it's rather cold in Japan, although the sun is shining over my shoulder there. So today I'm wearing a sweater and a polo neck rather than a batik, which I would love to be wearing. Okay. It's really, really good to talk to one another. And if we think about teaching, we go back to a work by Dan Lorty in 1975. It was a work called The School Teacher, and he likened the profession of teaching to an egg carton profession. And what Dan Lorty meant by egg carton profession, we as teachers have a tendency to go to our schools, teach our classes in our classroom behind closed doors. So the experience is shared by teacher and students. We may interact with one another for administration, but we don't really talk about teaching or get the opportunity to talk about teaching. So the idea of the egg carton profession is that we're all isolated in our classroom. And, you know, in my teaching experiences as I've developed through my career, my classroom door is still closed. I often say to my colleagues, you know, my door is always open if you want to observe my lessons, but we are all very busy people. So it's always good to talk. And the opportunities I do get to talk to teachers is those corridor conversations where you see your colleague walking down the corridor between classes and you just want to have a quick conversation about something that has happened in your classes. So those are the opportunities that I find are really, really good to talk. However, at the moment, most of us are now working and teaching from home. And I believe it is the same in Indonesia as it is in Japan. Many, many of the classes are now being taught using Microsoft Teams or on Zoom or any other learning management system or apparatus that you have to do that. So my situation, the academic semester in Japan starts from April, and we were supposed to begin in April, but as you know, the pandemic hit and was really, really bad in April, and Japan was in lockdown. So our semester got delayed, and we were given the news that we would actually be teaching online. So from April to today, I haven't seen anybody. I've been in my apartment in lockdown, or I go out for a walk around the river. My colleagues, I haven't seen them face to face since April. In fact, I've forgotten what they look like. All our classes are now on Microsoft Teams or Zoom, and all of the meetings are conducted online. So the advantage for working from home is that my commute is about 5 seconds from my bedroom over there in my Japanese apartment to my kitchen table where I'm talking to you today. So my commute time is fantastic. However, I don't get those opportunities to talk to my colleagues like I used to because of the pandemic. So working from home has great advantages, but it also has some big disadvantages. As in doing the plenary from my kitchen table has great advantages. I could teach my classes this morning. However, it would be lovely to see you all in person in a big room and be able to talk to you one-on-one after the session. Let's think about what is teaching, and particularly what is language teaching. And I would like to break down the activities that I do in my classroom into two categories, if you like. One being creative, new, experimental activities that I have never tried before, and then the repetitive acts that I do on a regular basis. So when you first go into the classroom and maybe you're teaching a new course or you're trying something out for the first time, it is a creative and experimental action. You're trying it for the very first time. I wonder if this will work. I wonder if I have my students in groups and put them in the corners of the room, will this work? And of course, as you're beginning your career into language teaching, everything is creative, everything is experimental. I remember when I first came to Japan, I landed at the airport. I was taken to the school and I was told I was teaching the next day. So I was thrown in at the deep end. And of course, everything then, it was my first real teaching job. Everything was creative. I was doing everything on the fly and learning the craft of teaching. Now, as these creative actions become part of our teaching, if you like, part of our pedagogic bag of tricks, the activities that we do usually, they become repetitive acts. They become part of the repetition of how we do things in the classroom. I have a particular repetitive act that I've had great success with, where I get students interacting in lines, and I call it kaitenzushi, where they interact and then they move around the tables, making best use of the space. First time I tried it, it was a creative act. Then it becomes a repetitive act. However, the trouble with repetitive acts, and they're very good because they're familiar with students, and often, if not always, I give my instructions in the language that students are learning, that is English. So if it's a familiar activity, that's very, very good for the students because they've done it before. Ah, Andy Sensei is going to do this. Okay, we've done this before, we know. So that repetitive acts are very, very good. However, when they lead to presumption, we may begin to presume without questioning that these activities are very good for our students. You know, I begin to teach my class in somewhat remote control if I'm presuming all of the time, and I'm not looking at what the students are doing or thinking about whether this activity works with this particular set of students. I begin to presume it does. And then presumption can lead to ritualism, where it just becomes a ritual. I'm just going through the motions in my classroom of doing that activity, which then can lead to alienation or over routinization. And this is something that Prabhu talks about in his 1990 paper, There is No Best Method, Why? I've done a lot of reading, a lot of academic research. Prabhu's paper is still my #1 favorite paper. And let me give you an example about presumption, ritualism, and alienation. Often in life, the things that we do are repetitive acts. How many times have you gone from your home to a train station and you get to the train station and you think, how did I get here? You don't remember. I mean, my train station is about 7 minutes on foot over there. I don't need to take a Gojek to my train station. I'm very lucky. I can walk. And I do it every day, or at least I used to before the pandemic. And so I would walk from my apartment to the train station. And when I get home in the evening, I walk from the train station back home. But because it's a ritual, I don't have to think about it. When I first moved into this apartment, it was new. So I had to be very careful. Do I turn this way or that way? Oh, where do I live? Oh, yeah, of course. I go down this road and I turn left here. I'm paying great attention to it because it's a new action. I've lived here for 7 years now, 8 years now in this apartment. So it just becomes a ritual. So I walk from the station back home or from home to the station without thinking, which is okay. But now imagine that one day they decide to dig a big hole in the floor, in the road, on the way from my apartment to the station. And because I'm not paying attention, because I've done this 100 million times before, I'm going to fall into that hole. And this is the danger of over routinization, which Prabhu talks about. If we as teachers stay at the creative level, then that would be too challenging. We need repetition. By its very nature, teaching is a repetitive act. However, at this stage, we need to reflect. Otherwise, we can presume the activities that we're doing in our class are effective, are working for the students. They may become just a ritualistic part of our teaching where we're doing it in remote control. We don't even think about it. And then it can become boring for the students and boring for us. And it becomes part of over routinization. And this is where Prabhu says is the danger for teachers, especially with burnout or wanting to leave the profession, because at that stage, they begin to think, oh, this is so mechanical, this is boring. So we need to avoid this stage here, the presumption, the ritualism, and the alienation. And we need to stay at these two levels. So at these two levels of creative action and repetitive act, this is where we need to reflect. And if we reflect, we keep it alive and we may then make changes. If we look at what Shun said in 1983's great book on the reflective practitioner, he comes up with two kinds of reflection. There's a reflection in action. We are all professionals. We know what we're doing in the classroom. And during a class, there may be something that goes wrong. There may be a critical incident. And we deal, while thinking on our feet, we deal with this critical incident. For example, I'm doing group work and maybe group 5 are talking in Japanese and not doing the task. This is a critical incident. So immediately as a teacher, I reflect in action. Were my instructions not good enough? Are they being lazy today? Was the language I used too difficult? What am I going to do? I'm going to go over to group 5 and I'm going to check and see that they've understood. Maybe I need to change the groups. This is reflecting in action. A critical incident has occurred in my lesson and I'm reacting to it. I'm thinking on my feet, as every professional will do, no matter what profession you are in. If you're a nurse in a hospital and there's a critical incident, you will think immediately how to react to respond to that critical incident with your expertise and knowledge to remedy it. And this is what we do as teachers. And this can also happen with repetitive acts that we do in the classroom, where we think, hang on, that isn't working. Why is it not working? What did I do? Did I do it differently? It worked with this morning's class. Why isn't it working with this afternoon's class? The second category that Sean talks about is reflection on action. And this is a reflection that's done once the lesson is finished. So there are two types of reflection. One is in action, thinking on your feet, and the other is reflecting on action. Now, I've defined language teaching as a series of creative activities that we do for the first time. I'm going to experiment. I've got a new course to teach. It's going to be creative. Everything I do is going to be new. And then as we become experienced as experienced language teachers, we build up this pedagogic bag of tricks. However, then the pandemic struck. And as I mentioned already, in April, I got the news from my university that we would switch to online teaching. I had to learn Microsoft Teams. I was somewhat familiar with Zoom as a guest, but not Zoom as a host. So suddenly for me, everything is a creative act. Everything is happening for the first time. So the switch to online teaching was a really big challenge. I'm happy for the challenge. It was really interesting for me to reflect on my teaching and think, okay, how do I adapt my face-to-face teaching for Microsoft Teams or for Zoom? So the switch to online teaching has created this huge opportunity for reflection. And if we look at what reflective language teaching is, here is a quotation from Thomas Farrell, who writes a lot about reflective practice. If you want to learn more about reflective practice, I really do recommend Thomas Farrell, and he is a very nice guy to boot. The reflective language teaching is that we have the power. We as professionals, we look at our own teaching and we can improve our own teaching by systematically reflecting on the experiences that we have in the classroom or when doing online teaching. We have the agency, we have the power. It's our class, our course, our lesson, our students. So reflective practice is very much part of what we should be doing on a daily basis, whether it be reflecting in action or on action about our classes. And we go back to the idea of this is when it might be good to talk. When you talk to your colleague about your class, you are returning to the experience. When you reflect on action, not inaction, because inaction is very quick. You're in the middle of teaching. You might have 30 students. You've got to deal with many, many things. After the class, after the lesson, this is when we reflect on action, when we've got more time to think. And by talking to a colleague about what happens in the classroom, we can go back to that experience. We can go back to that critical incident. We can go back to what is puzzling us about something that has occurred. And in any lesson, there will be many, many puzzles or many critical incidences that we have to attend to. we can start to think about our feelings. How did we feel at this point? Or how did our students feel at this point? Why did we act the way we did at that given moment? And what were the consequences of that action? We then reevaluate the experience in terms of having gone back to it and thought about what happened, what did I do, why I think it happened, what were the consequences of what I did. If I'd done something differently, would it have had an effect, a more positive effect, or maybe even a more negative effect on the lesson? And then we can act. It's too late to act in that lesson. That lesson is gone, that moment in time has gone. But next time you have that particular group of students, or next time you have a similar incident in a class, I'm going to try and act this way and see what happens. And then I'm going to reflect on that action and the cycle will begin again. This is why it's good to talk. It's good to talk to your colleagues about your teaching. I'm going to explain about a framework called cooperative development. And this was formulated by a researcher called Julian Edge, who used to work at Aston University. I studied under Julian Edge way back when I did my master's. And then he went to the University of Manchester, and now he is enjoying his retirement, writing detective novels instead of academic papers. So he's had a very fascinating career. Cooperative development is very much based on Rogerian principles. Now, Carl Rogers is a name synonymous with psychotherapy. So how does that relate to teaching? Let me tell you. Carl Rogers was one of the first psychotherapists to say, instead of diagnosing our patients, our clients, we should listen to them. The power of listening is really, really important. Now, Carl Rogers believed that everybody has within them the power to find the answers, the solutions to their own problems. So in terms of counseling, if someone has a psychological problem that is an obstacle to them operating in everyday life, Carl Rogers believed it's not my job as the psychotherapist to say, oh, you have this complex, so you should do this. It's my job to elicit from the patient, and maybe then through listening and not judging what they say, not thinking that person is lesser, but just listening and showing that I'm listening, that person will find the way forward for them. Now, Julian Edge was an applied linguist, and his research was in language teaching. So he took Carl Rogers' ideas about non-judgmental understanding, non-judgmental listening, and he put this into the cooperative development framework. In cooperative development, there are two teachers that come together. What the teacher must do is agree to suspend the ordinary rules of interaction. When we get together with our friends, when we get together with other teachers, the conversation is shared, and there's kind of like a fight for the interactional floor of who wants to talk. Maybe you interrupt each other. If your friend has a problem or the teacher has a problem, it's a natural tendency to suggest, give advice, offer a way forward. So often we do this as teachers. You know, if a teacher says, oh, I just taught this class and it went really bad, and my students didn't do the activity, and one of the students was sleeping on the desk, and oh, it was terrible. We have a natural tendency not only to jump in and advise that teacher of what they should do. Well, you should have done this, or you should do that, or you should do this. We also have a natural tendency to judge that teacher. So the teacher's coming to you to explain, you know, a very critical incident that happened in their class. If you judge that teacher, they're going to stop talking, because it's natural human tendency. If I open up to you and say, oh, that class was awful, I can't believe it, everything went wrong, you're gonna maybe think, wow, what's wrong with you? Are you a bad teacher? And if I can see that you are judging me, I'm not going to come and talk to you again. I'm going to hide from you. So in cooperative development, we have to refrain from judging. We have to refrain from giving advice. There are two people in a cooperative development session. There is the explorer and there is the understander. So when you do cooperative development with your colleagues, before you begin, you decide who is going to be the explorer and who is going to be the understander. The explorer's role in the cooperative development session, or the CD session, is to explore, is to reflect on his or her teaching. And as explorer, I am going to dominate the interactional floor. I am going to take the turns at talk. I am going to explore. Now, in a normal conversation, there'll be to and fro. But here, we want the explorer to explore by putting into words so that they can be understood by another the incidents that have happened in our classroom, whatever it is we want to investigate in a CD session. We then give those ideas and those thoughts and those feelings shape. We give them words that have to be understood by the second person, the understander. By being able to put our thoughts together in a coherent way so that they can be understood by another person, this will lead to awareness, and probably heightened awareness, where we return back to the classroom incident and we really think about what happened as we're explaining it to the second person. Through this heightened awareness, there is a strong possibility for discovery. And this is the aim of cooperative development. The aim is for a eureka moment where you're talking about a critical incident, you're talking about a puzzle in your classroom, and by talking about it, you suddenly go, ah, I got it. This is what I'm going to do. And that moment is incredibly powerful for self-change. Not only in teaching, but life itself, any aspect of life. If you discover something through talking to somebody and you discover it yourself, it's come from within, because you know the context of your classroom more than anybody else. I can give you advice. In fact, yesterday I did a presentation for Indonesian teachers teaching young learners. I gave them advice, but I don't know their classroom. I don't know their students. I don't know their teaching situation. So I can give them my advice from an educated perspective of what I would do, but it's much more powerful if they discover the answers themselves. Once you discover your answer, this is when you begin to determine a concrete plan of action of what it is that you are going to do to intervene or to make things different in your class. So one more time, the job of the explorer is to come to a CD session, a cooperative development session, with something to explore, something to talk about, a classroom incident that has happened, or a puzzle, why is this happening in my classes? And to talk about it, and through talking, putting the ideas into words so that they can be coherently understood by another person, we have the power for discovery, for self-discovery of, oh, what if I do this? Let me move to the role of the understander. The understander is the most difficult role. The explorer is going to be selfish in the conversation, if you like, because they will dominate the talk. It's all about them and their agenda, which is fine because it's cooperative development. And I am agreeing that I am going to listen as understander. I am not going to judge you. I'm not going to advise you. My job is to listen and try to understand you. To help the understander, there are several strategies or techniques or interactional moves that the understander can use. In face-to-face cooperative development, the first one is called attending. And attending is how we position our body to show that we are listening to the other person. If I am giving my plenary talk like this is very bad body language. So whoever has just joined the Zoom session now must be thinking, wow, he's very casual. The way we position our body is a way that we communicate that we are listening to the other person. So finding a way to work with another person where you put your body in a position that shows that you are 100% listening to the other person. In the modern world, it is so easy to become distracted. Often when I'm talking to my wife, can I say that? She will be on her, she will get distracted on her smartphone. We all do, there's so many different distractions, but if you're going to be the understander, you need to communicate to the other person that you are 100% listening to them. The most important job of the understander is to reflect their understanding of what the other person is saying. Julian Edge says that the understander is like a tape recorder. We're going back a few years. So think about MP3 recorder or audio recorder, but it's like a warm, human, selective tape recorder where you try and capture the essence of what the explorer has said and reflect it back to the explorer. So I hear what you're saying is that right? And then I check that I have understood. Now, this is very powerful in reflective practice for several reasons. One, it shows I am listening because I'm reflecting back my understanding of what you have said. Two, we go back to heightened awareness. The explorer is trying to put into words what has happened in their classroom, communicate it to the understander. By the understander reflecting that back to the explorer gets another chance to hear what they have said. So it's like reflection times 3. Number 1, you put the ideas into a coherent structure. Number 2, you speak it out to the understander. Number 3, the understander repeats that back, so you get the chance to hear what you've said. And at that point, you can go, oh, no, I didn't mean that. Or you could say, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I mean. And at that point, you feel understood. And because you feel understood and listened to and not judged, because these are your own words coming back, it becomes a very powerful mechanism to build on and lead to discovery. The understander also has several other strategies that they can use. One is called connecting, and connecting has two branches, if you like. One is thematizing. So maybe the explorer is saying a lot of things, and then they switch and say something else. And you feel there is a connection between something they've said earlier and something they've just said. So as understander, you can point out this connection. You don't have to hijack what they're saying. It's not because you want to say, you know, I think these connect, you should listen to this. You offer the explorer the opportunity. Earlier you said X, now you're saying Y. Is there a connection between the two? And you're doing this to help the explorer see possible connections in what they're saying that they may not have thought about before. The other side is if you see two contradictory statements, you know, earlier you said X, and now you say Y, but these two statements seem to contradict one another. How do you reconcile this contradiction? You're not doing that to trip them up or to say, haha, you've made a mistake, or to judge them in any way. You're there to support the explorer to explore their journey, their investigation of their class. And the final strategy is focusing. Now, normal tendency when we talk about teaching, we may start to go off into different tangents and talk about many different things. And a CD session really is to move to discovery and a plan of action on one of these issues. So if an explorer talks about many different things, as the understander, you can say, well, today you've talked about students not listening in the classroom. You've talked about students using the L1, and you've talked about students being late for their homework submission. Which would you like to focus on today? So once again, you're not hijacking the conversation. You're not getting the agenda from the explorer. You're trying to get the explorer to focus on one of these issues so that they can look at it much more deeply. So this is cooperative development. What I have done under Julian Edge, because I studied under him, and I started in 2005, and I'm still going now on this topic. This is the topic of my PhD. I developed or adapted Julian Edge's cooperative development framework to use by instant messenger, which I call IMCD, or Instant Messenger Cooperative Development. Now, there are several reasons why I did this. In 2005, when I first adapted Edge's cooperative development, the reason was I live in Tokyo, and Tokyo is massive. So is Jakarta. So are many big cities in Indonesia, Surabaya. I had to travel 45 minutes by train to do a CD session with my friend. Then I would travel 45 minutes back. It was 90 minutes of my time on a train to do cooperative development. And I wanted to cut down that time. And at that time, I was communicating to people using Skype Messenger. And so I thought, why can't we do cooperative development using Skype? This means it's very easy to connect. You can connect with anybody all over the world, regardless of where you are. So even if there was a pandemic or not, you can connect to teachers all over the world to do IMCD sessions. One of the skills of the understander is attending, and sometimes communicating in cyberspace can be very lonely when you're waiting for the other person to take a turn, especially as IMCD is text-based. It's not camera-based, it's text-based. But in a lot of the IM software, as the other person is typing their message, you can see the little 3 dots making a movement. And this gives the illusion of social presence in cyberspace. So this is really good attending. So you can do virtual attending now to show that you are still there, you are still connected, and you're communicating to one another. By doing a text-based form of cooperative development, one of the problems that I faced was turn taking. In face-to-face cooperative development, it's very easy to understand when the explorer has finished talking, or you wait for the transition relevance place in conversation analysis, you wait for the intonation to signal that they're coming to an end or about to start a new segment. And in face-to-face communication, you can jump in and go, oh, let me just check what you've said. And you can interrupt to reflect, being very careful in face-to-face cooperative development, not to interrupt their train of thought. So one of the problems I had with text-based IMCD was, how can we do this? How do I know when the explorer has finished their turn, and then I can reflect as understander? So I introduced into IMCD a specific agreed on handover cue or turn change signal. If the explorer types at the end of their turn, okay, question mark, they are giving the turn to the understander, and I know I can freely start to type and type my response and send it back to them. As understander, I use the same turn change signal. Once I've done my reflection move, I reflect back to the explorer. And if we use okay, 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 it's an agreed handover signal that this is the end of my turn. Please come in with your turn. Then there's no interrupting, because there's nothing worse when you're doing text chat, when you're trying to finish your train of thought by typing, and suddenly you see the 3 dots going, and you're going, no, don't, I haven't finished my turn, don't come in. And this happens a lot in IM interaction. One of the great benefits of turning cooperative development from a face-to-face discussion to a text-based IM discussion is the advantages of scrolling for the understander. I mentioned in the last slide that the understander must reflect what the explorer has said. This can be sometimes cognition overload. Cognition overload because you're listening, you're attending, you're showing you're listening, and you're trying to remember everything that the explorer has said so that you can reflect back to the explorer your understanding. So I was teaching this class yesterday, and it was a grammar-based class, and I did my usual time frames on the board, and let me, you've got to remember a lot of information to be able to reflect back in face-to-face cooperative development. And I've done a lot of face-to-face CD, and it is really challenging for the understander. I'm getting older, and as I get older, my memory isn't as good as it used to be. I have now got to the stage in my life, because I'm now 50 years old. Shh, don't tell anybody. I've got to the stage in my life where sometimes I go into one room and I go, why did I go in here? So that's my aging. So one great advantage of IM text-based cooperative development, you can scroll back. So the explorer is typing away. What I would do is take notes to the side on a Word document so it doesn't affect the IM communication. I'm taking notes on what they're saying, and I can scroll back and double check what they've said. So this is another great advantage of IM-based cooperative development. Then there is a theory that text messaging is actually more conducive to reflection. Let me explain what that means. So I've talked about face-to-face cooperative development. I return back to my classroom incident. I try and put it into language to communicate to the understander, and the understander reflects it back to me. So I get a really deep awareness of what I'm saying, and it helps me to discover. If I have to formulate it into written text, speaking is one thing. It's very easy to communicate by speaking so that another person understands. And if they don't understand, I can see in their face, facial recognition, they're going, huh? You know, you can see that they don't understand. And then you can begin to add clarification points. But by text messaging, you can't. So you have to really craft a message that is going to be understood by the understander. And by doing that, it's an added layer of reflection. And this is something that a researcher called Teresa McMahon mentioned in her study. And I will include all references at the end of my talk. And today's session is called Reflection in the Age of the Pandemic. Now, I devised or adapted Julian Edge's cooperative development framework when we could still talk to each other face to face with no problem. So I've always been on the internet communicating with people, but even more so today, if you want to communicate and reflect on your classes in the age of the pandemic, where it may not be so safe to talk face to people, you want to keep your distance, then IMCD offers a means of working together to reflect on your lessons and to engage in reflective practice. IMCD is just one way of doing this. There are many ways that you could do this. You don't have to work in the cooperative development framework. If you wanted to talk to each other, ordinary conversation where you judge and be critical, that is one way to reflect as well. But this offers an alternative way. Now, I've talked a lot about what cooperative development is and how it's related to reflective practice. I've also talked about my academic work on adapting cooperative development so that it's used online using IM text. What I'd like to do is to actually show you an IMCD session, and that will give you a sense of what it looks like, and also a sense of how it begins and how it moves forward. Before we move to this session, I must warn you, it will be rather text heavy because I have to show you a lot of text to show you what an IMCD session looks like. Also, this session is, it's a real session, and I'm a big believer in authenticity. And there is a big question in academic IM research, cyberspace research. With the data, do we correct typos? Do we correct spelling mistakes? Or do we keep them? And there will be lots of spelling mistakes and lots of typos because people are typing very quickly in this IMCD session. I have retained all of the mistakes that were made to retain authenticity. There's a very cute story. They often say that only 3 people will read your PhD tutor, your PhD examiner, and your mum. My mum was reading my PhD, bless her, because she got to page 80, and she called me and she said, "Andy, I'm sorry to say this, I found a typo in your PhD. It's a really big typo." And I said, oh no, what page, what page? And I turned to the page, and it was actually the IMCD data where I've retained all of the mistakes that were made in the live session. So I said, don't worry, Mum, it was supposed to be like that. So, okay, let me show you an IMCD session, and I'm going to show you on the PowerPoint, and then I'm going to hopefully be able to come out of this PowerPoint and show you more on a Word document. Let's hope I can do that today. Now, an IMCD session can be divided into 3 stages. There is the pre-session stage, there is the session stage, and there is the post-session stage. The pre-session stage is before the session stage begins, and the first thing that usually happens is initiating the conversation. A little bit like the old-fashioned telephone. When the telephone rings, hi, you need to initiate the conversation. So you can see here, E stands for explorer, U stands for understander. I am the understander in this session, and E is a teacher in Europe. Hello, I've changed Andy to understander to hide my identity, but I've told you that I am the understander. And there's a greeting, how are you? Good, thanks. So you can see that the session begins at 10:30. If it's a first time session with a new IMCD, a new person to try out IMCD, the next move will probably be self-introduction, because it might be the first time that I've worked with the teacher. And when I collected my data for my PhD, particularly I worked with teachers that sometimes I'd never met. So we want to do a little bit of a self-introduction. However, once you've done self-introduction and it's the second or third or fourth session, the next move is small talk. How was Korea? I was in Nagoya for JELT. JELT is a Japanese conference. It's going to happen next week, actually. Then, like a telephone conversation in business, there's going to be a move where in a telephone conversation, you get to the move where the reason why you called. Oh, hey, oh, hi, John. Hey, how you doing? Oh, yeah, I watched the football game. Yeah. Anyway, I called because, and that's the move to getting down to business. So, time is money. We are 3-4 minutes into the session. The understander asks, should we get started? The explorer says, okay, I'd like to get this session into the classroom. Let's go. Now, the reason she says, I'd like to take this session into the classroom, my PhD looked at using IMCD to support research problems rather than pedagogic problems. So I worked with a lot of master's students or doctoral students who had obstacles in their research, and they used IMCD to try and find a way forward with their research. This particular explorer I was working with, we had done 5 sessions on her master's research. But in this session, she wanted to look at her teaching. So she says, let's take this session into the classroom. Now, she is free to choose any topic she wants to explore. So I said, yeah. Well, she said, let's go. And I said, okay. Stepping into roles, I typed this into the session to show that now we are going to adopt the roles of understander and explorer, and we're going to work under modified interaction, where we're going to start the turn change signal. I'm not going to judge or give advice, and I'm going to give the floor, the interactional floor, to the explorer. And you can see the first use of the turn change signal here. All right, now we go to the session stage, which gets more text heavy. So if I am very, very savvy, I should be able to share my Word document. I hope this works. Yay. Can everyone see the Word document? Yeah, it worked. Okay, great. Okay, so the first thing that needs to be done in a session is what I call setting the scene. And it's very much like storytelling. You don't start a story without setting the scene. Yesterday, I was walking down the street and they dug a big hole in the street and I fell down. You know, you're gonna set the scene of the story. So here we have once a week, the setting the scene move may include time. Once a week on a Tuesday afternoon, she has a grammar workshop lesson. In the setting the scene, you're going to introduce the characters. I learned that she has state-of-the-art equipment in this self-study center, and it's for the students to use. And they do self-study on grammar. And we begin to get the sense of her early frustration or possible frustration with this pedagogic situation is that they're all mixed ability. I get kind of like the sense that she's a bit frustrated about that. And her job is to guide their self-study once a week. In the setting the scene move, the explorer will often explain their puzzle, their critical incident, or what I call their obstacle which is stopping them moving forward. And the obstacle that she mentions is in line 45. And you can see she actually signals this with, so the issue is, so the problem is. So the issue for her is she only teaches them once a week and they learn the language and then they disappear. They leave the classroom. They go out of the classroom, and next week it's a different focus. So she's worried about the connection between what they've done in the classroom and them retaining the language. And you can see she uses the turn change signal. Okay. By the way, I should say, if you're busy writing down all of this text or taking screenshots, don't worry, I will give you the link later where you can get this data. The most important job of the understander is to reflect back what the explorer has said. So here is an example of my reflection. Please notice the typo of ability as you type quickly. So in line 55, the understander quickly shows that I've started to take the turn and I'm going to need a little bit of time to check. So it's always good to have what I call a hesitation marker. Okay, let me check. So I'm telling the explorer that I'm going to type more, but just hang on a minute. So you have a weekly grammar workshop with a mixed ability class. The facilities are great. However, you feel a lack of connection. So I'm trying to capture what the explorer has said in the previous turn at talk, leaving the classroom, and you want there to be more of a connection. Line 60, it's always important for the understander to end their reflection to check, to confirm the accuracy of the reflection, to check that you are indeed understanding. So the understander says, yes, is that right? Okay, and okay is a turn change signal. After a turn at talk, the explorer will have the chance to evaluate the understander's reflection. And when I use the word evaluation, that's the only evaluating in cooperative development. The explorer is allowed to evaluate the quality of my understanding, because if I've misunderstood, it's really important to let me know, no, you've got this completely wrong, what I meant. And it gives the explorer a second chance to reframe and clarify what she meant. Sometimes you'll get a comment from the explorer, spot on, you've got that absolutely correct. Here I have a kind of 50-50, pretty much you've understood. but it's not me wanting a connection. It's just they're going to put these self-study notes into their bag at the end of the session, and they're going to leave the classroom and never look at them again. That's her concern. So as we move on, what usually happens in an IMCD session is that the explorer has now set the scene, explained the issue, will start to think of potential responses of how to overcome this pedagogical issue, the issue of them spending time doing grammar study with her guidance. Then they put the notes in their bag, they leave the classroom, and they never look at them again. And you can see that potential response linguistically, the explorer will use lots of it's couched in indefinite terms. It's a possibility, it's a maybe. I'd like to create, this is my wish, I'd like to create some way of getting them to recycle what they did the week before. So instead of just putting their bags in, then the next week they come in and start to do some different self-study. She wants them to recycle and reuse what they did before so that it's not lost, so that there is some kind of retention in their learning. So I'm thinking, so she begins to build possible response. What I need is some kind of sheet. So the idea of they have some kind of worksheet that they fill in. And then this worksheet becomes an activity for the following week. And you can see they could. So it's all possible, potential. I'm working this out as I'm typing to the understander. They could maybe just make notes while studying. Then in the last 15 minutes, they turn these notes into questions. And these questions could then be used in the following lesson. There's a gap here. I've taken out the understander's reflection. Throughout all of the turns, the understander is still reflecting back to the explorer to help the explorer read again what she's thinking and help to begin to work out what her plan is going to be. In an IMCD session, it doesn't always happen, but the aim of a session is for a discovery. Ah, I've got it. This is exactly what I want to do. So you can see the discovery take shape here. It's a beautiful discovery because it happens mid-sentence. My only concern, so there's a problem, a new obstacle with her response. So they could write some questions on this worksheet to themselves, which we could use in the following lesson. But my only concern is that if they've written these questions to answer in the next week, and then she doesn't finish that sentence, it's beautiful. She doesn't finish that sentence. She apologizes and she discovers that she's answering her own question before she even writes it. This is a beautiful discovery. And then she explains to the understander what this discovery is. I was thinking that learners will be able to answer their questions without much thought because they've written the questions on their self-study. So of course they'll be able to answer them easily. But actually that's a gem. That's a really good idea. It will make them learn because they're writing questions to themselves that they will use in the preceding class that they can use as a review activity. And that even though they've made the questions themselves, which at first she considers to be problematic, she realizes that actually this is a great idea because she wants them to be able to review and recycle and retain the grammar points that they're learning in the self-study center. Once a discovery has been made, the potential response may then begin to move into a planned response. And you can see this resolution of the issue that has been bothering her. In line 162, you have, that's it, I have my answer. She has, through the help of the session, been able to get to a way forward that works for her and her particular context of the self-study access with her students. And here You have the very concrete plan of what she is planning. Students will study for 1 hour, but 15 minutes before the end of the lesson, they're going to use some kind of worksheet to write self-study questions to themselves. In the following lesson, as a way of review, they will answer those questions in the first 15 minutes of the next lesson. And that is the connection that she has been looking for. If you remember, the initial problem was that students are doing some self-study. They thank you very much, put the notes in their bag, and then they go. And then next week, it's a totally different focus. There is no connection. And she wants them to be able to recycle what they've learned so that they can look at their notes again. So by the student making self-study questions and then having to answer the questions in the following lesson, she's found her plan and her action. This is what she wants to do. It's not for the understander to end the IMCD session unless the time allocation has come up. And usually I set an hour. And if we're still in the middle of the exploration, you can continue it in the next session. Okay, and so I'm asking a question. I'm inviting the explorer. Do you want to end the session? She doesn't have to. And you can say, yes, I think I found my solution. Okay, stepping out of roles. So now I want to go back to my PowerPoint. Okay, got it. Brilliant. So after the session stage, which will go through setting the scene, articulating the obstacle that is in the way, potential responses, discovery, and plan response. This one has all of those moves in there. You end the session. Now, after you end the session, what usually happens is there's a thank you, there's a rescheduling of session. If you're working with somebody on a regular basis doing IMCD, as I said, the explorer is the selfish option and the understander is the selfless option. So you reciprocate. Maybe next week you switch over and next week I'm going to be the explorer and you will be the understander. And so you work and you rotate. So you both get a chance to reflect on your classes. It's always very good as well to reflect on the IMCD session and reflect on the understander. Did you feel understood? Did it help you discover? And here we have a very powerful quotation by the explorer about the power of CD or IMCD for reflective practice. And here she says, this session created the space for me to get clear on what I wanted to do and how I can implement my ideas. So before she came to the session, she wasn't very sure. She knew she had this issue, but she wasn't sure how to deal with it. By the end of the session, she has a plan of action and she can try that out in her next class. If it works, she reflects on action and go, oh, that worked a lot. That worked a treat. I'm going to use this and it's going to become my repetitive act. Every lesson, part of the routine, the students will write their self-study grammar questions and they'll answer the questions in the following class. If it doesn't work, she'll modify, revisit, and try something new. So facilitating reflective practice in the age of the pandemic, while we are being forced to or recommended to social distance, online does give us this alternative way of communicating to one another. And it could be that IMCD is something that you'd like to try. If I can describe IMCD as a dialogical, there's two people involved, virtual non-judgmental space for reflection and discovery. That's what it offers. It offers the explorer the interactional space to fill with their ideas with the hope that they will discover a plan of action about what they want to do next to overcome the obstacle, or it could be a puzzle. Why is this happening? And to gain deeper understanding and discovery about that. So really, I'd like to bring this plenary to an end by saying, really, it's over to you guys. It's about finding the time. I know we are all busy as teachers, but finding the time to get together with a colleague that that you can work with, and trying, okay, let's remember that plenary that I watched last week with this Andy Boon character. That sounded pretty interesting. Let's give it a try, and let's see if we can reflect on our online teaching. And as always, as teachers, the reason we do the whole reason we do anything is for our students to develop. That's the whole purpose of our teaching. So by reflecting, we become more engaged in our teaching and finding the solutions to the problems that we face. So we all become better teachers. And the beautiful thing about teaching, the thing that motivates me in my job, is that teaching is learning. And that's why I don't feel over routinization, as Prabhu warned, of the mechanical teacher who's just going through the motions. I love it. And I'm always trying to respond to the challenges every day by reflecting on them. Thank you very much. I hope you found today's session very useful. And I hope that you try reflective practice, or you can give IMCD a go with your colleagues. My email address is there for you. And as I promised, I want to show you some of the references that I've used today. So because there are quite a few, I will jump back to my Word document. And I'm going to show them here, but I've just, as I am reflecting in action on the best way to deliver the references to you, I've realized that I can put them in the chat box. So let me do that. This is a perfect example of reflecting in action to overcome a problem of how do I get these, references to you. Now, the key one here, this is an article I published in Indonesian JELT, which is published by Atmajaya University in Jakarta. And this one is free to download. And the session that I used today in the plenary about the grammar self-access and that discovery is the focus of this paper. So if you've been busy scribbling down notes, I'm very, very sorry, because you can just download that paper and everything will be there for you. So let me put this into the chat box, and I will send that to everyone if it will let me. Oh, it's not letting me do that. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I have another way of doing this.
Probably we will share the materials to the participants via link later. We will provide a Google Drive for them.
That's excellent. I can send, I'm just thinking I can send the Word document that I showed today there. That's it.
Oh yeah.
That's
awesome.
me. That's me once again reflecting in action to figure out how best to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Boon. Let's give applause to Dr. Boon. And that was a really eye-opening presentation. I think many people thought that using instant messaging is just for communication, and we often overlooked its function as a CD. Like a tool to professionally develop ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, for the participants, if you have any question, please, you can use the chat box or just say the question. Or discussion, probably. Any ideas, thoughts, opinions? I guess one important thing in CD is the non-judgmental characteristic, right?
It is. It's very important. And I think when you are first doing understanding, our natural tendency is to give advice because we're teachers. Yes. You know, we love giving advice. You know, if a student has a problem, oh, why don't you try this website, or you should do this? It's part of our job. So when you're doing this reflective practice with CD or IMCD, you have to bite your tongue to not give the advice. Many times I've been doing IMCD, I get my finger and I bite myself because I don't want to give advice. So it gets very, very, very tricky. Yeah.
Okay, I guess there is a question in the chat box from Ms. Intan Pradita.
To motivate teachers or to motivate students?
Can you please clarify the question, Ms. Intan?
Okay. Hi, Andy.
Hi.
All right. Okay. This topic is very interesting because we integrate the reflective practice while we are doing IMCD in the class. What happened to my class as a reflection? Some of the students were reluctant or inactive during group discussion through IMCD, especially when it is conducted online. Then what we can do, what I mean we is I and the other group members, we're just checking and asking, where are you? Where are you? Something like that.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea or like how to, to motivate them or to engage them during the group discussion?
Now that is a very good question. But if I answer your question, I am going to deny everything that I have said today, where I shouldn't give advice. And I would say that the way to solve that problem is to get together with your colleague and try IMCD or CD, reflect on that issue, and see if you can find the answer yourself. I am biting my tongue because I have many things that I could say to you to give you advice on that issue. But I'm not going to, because today I spoke about IMCD, where I'm saying that you will have the answer. If you can reflect on that with your colleague and your colleague can listen, you might come up with some ideas. As the session I showed today with the teacher going through the stages of discovery and plan response, there are, you know, this is the tricky thing about IMCD because you should really work in two ways. One with somebody that you're going to do IMCD because you can't give advice to each other. But you should also have a teacher friend where you swap ideas.
Okay, so by sharing our stories one another to my colleague, to other teachers, then we will find many solutions.
You will find your own solution.
Okay.
Given your context. So the idea with CD or IMCD is my context is different to your context. You know your context the best. So you will have the answer inside of you. The understander helps you to reach a higher level of understanding where you're likely to discover an answer.
I see. Okay.
The other way of working would be, you know, I'm a member of a Facebook online group where many people go, I've got this problem with Zoom, and do you have any ideas? And then all of the teachers will go, try this, try this, try this, try this. And that's another way of working, which is absolutely fine. But sometimes you want to find the answer yourself.
Yeah, I think we have started that. We have a kind of a discussion in a common room, and then what we now in our class it happened like this, in other classes happen like this, and then so apparently that is also the best way it is, yeah, indeed, to find our own solution based on our context.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you.
Worries. Thank you.
Okay, I guess there is an interesting point from this discussion. You mentioned something about sharing ideas. So how do you differentiate between the IMCD or the CD from the forum or the groups to share ideas? Are they different?
That's a very good question. I always suggest that you have different ways of working on your reflective practice. And sometimes the easier way is to just go, I've got this problem, what do you think? And I've got many really great teacher friends who are going to give me a suggestion, and then I can critically judge which suggestion I feel suits my context and choose that. That's an easy way. And IMCD isn't always easy because I have to find the answer myself. However, if I'm working with somebody doing IMCD, if I'm going to be understanding, I have to really, spell it out to them. I will not be able to give you any advice. So you'll get support in your exploration, but you won't get advice or suggestion. And if you want that, then we have to work in a different way. And I did have in my PhD, there's an outlier session. Most of the people really appreciate it. But there's one outlier session, which was a wonderful session, where the explorer got increasingly more frustrated because I wouldn't give any advice. It was a Aston University course that I'd done, and this person wanted advice on what module or path to take for the masters, which is very personal to your context. So the modules that I chose, I have my reasons for choosing them, but she was like, please advise me, please give me advice. And I had to say, well, I can't, this is IMCD. You have to find the answers yourself. So for that person, it was a negative experience. But for others, like the session I showed today, you see the power of self-discovery. And you see that kind of, she's in the middle of typing and then, oh, hang on, I've answered my own question. That's very, very powerful for self-discovery.
Okay, so it's more like having an agreement at the beginning of the session. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other question or opinion or thoughts from the participants? Well, I guess that's it. That will be the end of our plenary session. Thank you very much, Dr. Boon, for the very insightful presentation.
Thank you. And just for the participants today, I have put the document in there that's got some of the data, but more importantly, it's got the references. And the Indonesian GELT one, you can download that for free. And it's got all of the data that I showed today.
Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And there will be a Google Drive later shared for the participants containing all the materials for all the plenary sessions.
Yes.
And I guess this is the last part of the plenary session. We're going to take a picture together. And for all the participants, please turn on the camera, because we're going to take a picture with Dr. Boon. This is a very special occasion.
I am very honored. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope to see you soon in person.
Yeah, that would be great. I have been to Jogja last year for my honeymoon. So
wow.
I was hoping to visit again, but next time I'll come again.
Did you enjoy your stay here?
I loved it. Yeah, it was the perfect honeymoon. So
okay, so I'm going to take a picture. There will be 4 slides. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, thank you very much. And I think that's all for today. Once again, let's give a big applause to Dr. Boon. for his wonderful presentation.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, yes. And I will give the screen back to the master of ceremony.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for Dr. Andy Boon for the remarkable presentation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please be advised that the previous agenda is not the last agenda for today. Before I close it, the main session, I would like to announce some particular information regarding a parallel session that follow. Please take some notes. Parallel A will be in room A with Nindi. Parallel B will be in room B with Pachan. Parallel C will be in room C with Irfan. Parallel D will be in room D with Mutia. Parallel E will be in room E with Norman. Parallel F will be in room F with Herbie and Ferby. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for your keen attention and active participation. I'll see you on the next day. Stay safe and healthy. Don't forget to wear your mask wherever you go. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now you may leave the meeting and then come back again to each of the room, each of your presentation room at 1 o'clock with the moderator and liaison officer in each room. Thank you for your participation. We'll see you again in 1 hour.